words. Words. We've got words. Okay, let's see. Words. Words. Got words. 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 Words.
Jasmine, Squid, Asia, Julian, what's up?
Hey.
What's up?
Oge is going to be a freshman at Harvard this year. So she's joined. There, so yes. Oh wow, Harvard, congrats. She's that.
Thank you.
Yes. So I'm excited. What I think that we can turn off. Oh, it's freshman at Harvard this year. So she's joined. There, so yes.
Y'all really didn't let a sister know. I really am glad. Because I was about to really come out here cooking.
1 second, because I think the audio is on, and I don't want y'all to be saying things that you don't want the entire world to hear. Just in case. Squid, does that light mean audio on?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Sorry,
Hello?
you said make the switch, so I started.
I know,
making the
and then,
switch.
I know that the world got interesting. All right. Hello, everybody. Hi, how are you? You saw the kind of... Just in case. Squid, does that light mean audio on?
Yes.
Okay, perfect.
Sorry,
Hello?
you said make the switch, so I
I
started.
know,
making the
and
switch.
I know the world got interesting. All right. Hello, everybody. Hi, how are you? You saw the kind of... Squid, does that light mean audio on?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Debate, and so it's purely off of like a pedagogical use and factor for the folks in this community, as well as just us enjoying this little space. Well, yes, Najar, for the students from the chat, I fully expect you to flow. That's a duh. So you're right. There is a few ballots, but those ballots don't shape my subjectivity at all. Anyway. But we're gonna get started with this. I know I have usually a large preamble before we get into the debates because I have a lot to say about Debate Boutique. But the only thing that I do, 2 things. One is a thank you to the 3 individuals who have said yes to engaging in this debate.
Coming.
Was that okay? Who have said yes to engaging in this debate. We have Asia Butler, Julianne Kufor, and Arik Singleton. Super duper excited. All different experiences and textures within debate, which is something that I find very beautiful about Debate Boutique, is that folks who are either still in the activity, folks who are not in the activity, folks who have graduated, a whole bunch of just stuff comes back to we love debate. And so I'm super excited and really appreciative and grateful for all of y'all to be here. And of course, thank you to Squid once again for doing all the tech stuff that I could never, to allow for this live stream to happen. So once again, thank you. We got a well-oiled machine now. This little light thing that we have, y'all, I don't think you understand. Part one live stream, we didn't have this. This is called innovation. And lastly, Debate Boutique is coming in the fall, and that's period this. Yes, Debate Boutique is not just a summer camp thing, even though we've never said we're a camp. We are coming to the fall to bring accessible, innovative, and engaged debate content to both high school and college folks. I'm super excited about that. Look forward to it. Merchandise ? You got it. It's coming. A lot of energy, time, and resources have gone towards this vision. With that being said, I'm going to stop talking. The debate's going to start. On the affirmative, we have myself and Julianne Kufor, which is always interesting as someone who I coach. And this is going to be interesting coach, student, person relationship. And then we got Asia. See the finalist in the building. For someone who's been retired. Also, wait a second. See the finalist, Harvard champion, Copeland contender, first round recipient. It's gonna be hard. And I'm sorry, are you saying something, Eric?
I was saying she was number 5. Number 5.
Number 5. I mean, y'all know the vibes. If you don't, that just means she's that one, right? And then we got Eric, who, truth as it's told, I don't say this out loud, but the one debate that he was in with Khalees Warren Warfield back in 2018 and then decided to leave all of a sudden, yeah, I lost. It's fine. I'm good. I'm calm, cool, and collected.
And then that was the end of the career.
Collected. But I'm actually done talking. We're affirmative. They're negative. We're going to get started with this. Thank y'all for watching this debate. Let's do it.
All right. I sent it in the chat. Is that good? Do I need to send it in a different location? Sweet.
Who showed up? I got a flow. Hold on.
Hold on. You said you sent it in the chat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm gonna need an email because these things disappear or something.
Hey, it's new age debate. This is what debate's gonna be.
Also, while y'all are doing that, I'm creating breakout rooms. This does not matter to the folks in the stream, but to the folks in the Zoom, how this works is that there'll be 2 prep rooms, one for the affirmative, one for the negative. You'll be able to move in and out of that, depending on your aff or neg. But then for those who want to listen in on the prep, you can go into those rooms.
Eric, do you need it in an email?
I mean, I got it sent to me before, but I would love an email.
Sweet. All right. Can you put your email in the chat or say it out loud? Or I can just like make a chain for the whole debate if we want.
Yeah, let's do that.
All right.
You supposed to do
So breakout room 1, we'll say it's the aff room. Breakout room 2 will be the negative room. I didn't have time to name them. And then if
stop join this breakout.
I'm sorry, don't join.
Oh. Yeah.
Stay in here.
Eric, have you sent your email? See. All right, should be sent. All right, we all good? Sweet. Call me your deepest urge toward survival. Call me and my brothers and sisters in the sharp smell of your refusal. Call me roach and presumptuous nightmare on your white pillow. Your itch to destroy the indestructible part of yourself. The brown menace by Audrey Lorde. Call me your own determination in the most detestable shape you can become. Friend of your image within me. I am you and your most deeply cherished nightmare scuttling through the painted cracks you create to admit me into your kitchens, into your fearful midnights, into your values at noon, into your most secret places with hate. You learn to honor me by imitation as I alter although your greedy preoccupations through your kitchen wars and your poisonous refusal to survive. We are the roast, the most intimate form of your existence. Your existence is only possible through the pathologization of our bodies. Understanding humanity is constituted as subject with certain properties is the notion of capitalism incompatible with the survival of those not included in this social world. The persistence of black light is what you fear, but is what will continue to shape the future comes in to intend using the rich description of the persistence of black life combated by the limits of the patriarchal family and internalized value of capitalism. But everyone fears it actually is invisible. For me, the rich redefines survival. The rich speaker of the power of myself principle survive in this social world of to a certain environment, the present attempt to destroy the black mother survival, the repeated violence against and within the black community survive. In the infinitive, in the command form, accused here, describing an opposition of futurity in which a person himself, the defender of society, unhated other, even within himself, the death threat itself is an indelible impact and unavoidable reminder of the need for transformation to himself survival in both forms. Initially, it's an imperative catalyst, potential survival moves beyond the context of biological life into analysis of the impact that conquers questions the category of the human, arguing that survival in general, human survival is not the same power to highlighting the way in which social communities, particularized operating through dependence on the dehumanized other, call me as an echo and a reproduction mimicking the ways in which a human has been defined and haunted by the other, reproduced through the call through a repeated naming of that other, the presence of the other threatened humanism operates through property, the invading others, all the rightful property of the human, the troubles of property owners' desires and ability to secure her property. Property is the form through which a human is haunted by its institution. Property declares a manifestation of the radical other and habits not only the privately owned species of the human, but considers subject itself the non-human speaker of the moment composing human reason to embody her differences form of this form critique and transform the form of the human, putting out the definitional or the definition of the human within a specific form of capitalism, i.e. the human as a form of property instead of a form of life or spirit is incompatible with survival, rather than merely insert blackness into existence to do the unraveling work. Erratic disturbance is a reorientation to desire that refuses the affective labor that is the cognitive fashioning of white bodies to black flesh. King 19, I acknowledge that Homo ever has become a name, just as how he is to acknowledge the rise of the side of black bodies, the pain rebellion, and movement, make that being your evidence, presenting this and her of violence of the world, testament, performance of pure and anti-present in another form of white research for the universe is not producing knowledge, is interested in performing or producing knowledge for political action, more specifically the eradication of anti-black racism. The university tries to work against our mental social scientists, just trying to intervene upon and improve field society success, it's trying to develop and impulse to improve abstract for humanize teaching field the question, how did I advance upon and intervene upon a shape black side is rarely not black as obviously say that this empathetic practice is a process of becoming this chaos and power black presence of body cannot use reorganize the white body in different terms of white exposed away that the self depends on the black body kind of being for whiteness that this can interrupt the impulse to objectify black life. The semiotic process of bulk incidental collection necessitates algorithmic models that presume white cis males as the standard of innocence and patriotism. This produces disembodied, racialized, sexualized, and gender terms of black women. That mandates the reduction of black life to raw data for America's spectacular shepherd. In 16. Big data are but the latest trend in a long tradition in modernity's fetishization of taxonomy. The surface of its institutional order is important not to lose sight to not lose sight of the historical continuity, status, surveillance, established embedded in where gender, race, sexuality are concerned. Racialized ordering is fluid and consensual, but it was negating strategies that are captive European colonial expansion, transatlantic slavery, the exploitative monitoring of black women by law enforcement, media commentators, online committees continue to extend pervasively contemporary social spaces simultaneously obscuring the forms of discrimination they face in the name of allegedly general interest. Algorithmic models that advance realized or measured against white male cisgender heterosexual the predictive models fed by surveillance how to reproduce past patterns they cannot take into account take into effective consideration randomness, feminist attention to the data practice involved as well as to those left behind due to a lack of access to timely and warranted. The one I see is a refusal redirection and refutation of the basic page politics of visibility. The Anglophone West continues to rely on it as a politics of it is necessary that we devise a new politics of looking at being looked at for and by blackness even there's a black of surveillance in the experience of black body we can find practice necessary to recognize that we are the constant border versus subject from the surveillance surveyor, and this recognition is the call for rejection of U.S. surveillance as a tool of colonial these alongside and an attempt to reposition and reclaim blackness is like to look both at itself and the colonial other. It is in this multiplicity that we not only present the self but insert the self into existence. In 16, the internet flat subjectivity separate associations metadata even efforts to reoccupy one's life with the hope of subverting external expectation to be black as that once can be hyper visible and invisible in either or theory of representation seems unhelpful. This complicated relationship of visibility sink into aestheticization, depoliticization. We must devise a new politic of looking being looked at to the Du Boisian double consciousness that characterized black life for centuries. In this condition of looking at ourselves through the eyes of others, workable theory of auto assertion that takes into account the experientially fund active looking at being looked at both surveillance politic that find etc. the experiences by femme and female bodies that lead us to a politic that speaks to the alien experiences that refuses there's opposite role case, there's multiple sexuality, there's desire, there's protection. Rosa Fergus wrote making one's objectivity visible or affirming one's existence through yourself is said to demolish the disembodied needs to do more than simply present itself. It needs to insert itself. What does it mean if the radical affirmation of blackness is a radical affirmation of refusal itself in response to this question and the resolution itself? The act doesn't call for self-correcting curtailment and curtailing through normative political action, but you should understand closing the loop as pedagogical pursuit towards throwing shade at surveillance and mobility beyond the surveillance of black politics practices and performance. Brown in 15, the effect of blackness is central to the surveillance of surveillance and Black Lives Association names what is. It is better within the category of human offenses and black lives after surveillance after different sections of the position of race on body. There's how much resistance it speaks straight for. And by one is dark medicines of this is metaphor and live materiality and applies to understanding surveillance across multiple cities in the airport. The section from different segments of time to think through the multiplicity of biases within with certain acts of cultural production. We can find certain performances of freedom to surveillance cultural identity that does not see black experience as static or singular, but instead as a series of transformation. My use of the term blackness is no blackness is more than carries with the particular resistance domination that is always under contestation. Blackness is identity, culture, history, and present, signifier, and signified, but never placed within the field of surveillance. Ideas remains race remains under theorized, and the role of the translated safe gender in particular, rather than being surveillance society inaugurated by new technologies, leaders not going into human society, so blackness undergirding sustained intersecting surveillance practices. Well, our present order by intersecting surveillance are referred to the ways of which surveillance practices and policy regarding to surveillance operate invisible, not notable, yet still somehow their dark matter is theoretical. As the term dark matter is the way to think about racist substance abstractions, but we can live from moments of refusal and critique that reveal the social life of the slave conditions, speak of the freedom practices, and detail the workings of power, and the making of what is essential of the slave life into the everyday through acts of violence. So when I see is an assertion of the body into narratives, it is labor, it is non-negotiable. Guys, in 17, we still have to find a place and a way to live here in the life and relationship with humanity, but though it is not the first time our communities are peaceful in cities levels of person, we have to make it our home again. As our true Lord said, we can make something out of nothing, we can make something out of anything. Jordan took a cheek to look at the intersection, she said, President made the little corners of her neighborhood and safe for black children, but Jordan didn't stop there. She drew up architectural plans for all black feminist future where black people of all ages could have green space, safe public spaces, and connection and physical life. Say that. And Kurt's wonder, after Ronald Reagan won the presidential campaign on a welfare platform that are criminalized black women in order to deprive all of social workers and black women to age and spiritual practices flourish and making their visionary activism use of political conditions to include black feminists use our living rooms as alternative spaces of media making expelled from the streets and industries with creators classes threatening the world. These practices called the Dreamer committees are continuing to do what we have done for generations, including housing, spiritual space, or breathing collective space together without permission. And white and non-black bodies engaged in the study of blackness within a body politic that attempts to organize the world as knowable through the affective desire of blackness as a body making. In 19, embodied act presents different kind of features and realities concerning the whole kind of impossible notion of black future originate, but disembodied acts desire, desperation, and hope, and effect as an effect that create critical theories in their methodology chosen to see only to affect the body of black desire world making radical future bodies partly in epistemological form centered by the limits of habituality and perception of habitualities, perceptual anchor the body's topic of the primary field for orientation of the social world in order to base on somatic or body reasoning the world of the flesh that precedes the body. 33 seconds. Probably could have read the Williams card. Unfortunate.
Tisk. It's okay.
Okay. Julian, you ready?
Mm-hmm.
All right, cool. What does it mean to be a roach?
What it means to be a roach is, in the context of this 1AC, is to slip into the cracks, into the foundations of liberal humanism that are built to exclude black people, but black people still find a way to slip in through the cracks. The roach is meant for it.
Cracks of liberal humanism?
Hmm?
I said, well, how does the 1AC slip into the cracks of liberal humanism?
It doesn't, sorry, I'm sorry. It doesn't slip as in like movement going towards, but rather just is. And so that is not common knowledge in terms of the way in which we sift and see that, like get to that point, which is why the 1AC is an embracement of that kind of pathologized register, which is pathologized, i.e. the roach, not something that we see as positive, but like the way in which we understand it in the context of, you know, its relationship with world humanism.
Okay, cool. So my question is then, Jasmine, can you answer what the roach is? Or rather, more so, were you both roaches before the 1AC?
Yeah.
So like, what is the 1AC more so an affirmation of that roachness?
I think
affirmation of the roachness is what brings about the solvent, I guess
That's what I was just saying about embracement, right? It's not like a getting to, like one has to move towards, but that there are things like material kind of regimes of surveillance that dictate the kind of way in which we're able to embrace, right? So it's not like unique fodder that is then produced, but just is, but there are contingent ways in which surveillance apparatuses deny the capacity to capture that essence for yourself. Yes.
Right. So in some way, being the affirmation, or I guess whatever relationship the 1AC has to the roach, is a way to combat surveillance.
I feel like one, and Julian can answer the rest, but like there's a fixation on just like the roach. Many other, maybe like 200 other words were said in the context of that poem that is not just the embracement of the roach, but like the contextualization that Audre Lorde is kind of pointing to the inability for the subject to understand a property relation to Blackness. And that if we understand that through that lens, there is an embracement of kind of pathology that is valuable outside of that capture. I'm sorry.
Okay, so the 1AC is about the embracement of pathology.
Yeah, the 1AC is closing the loop. We kind of are the disruption through the reading of the poem and the things that it offers. But I won't say that we are like everything is hinged upon the roach.
So so I guess so. The 1AC then closing the loop is about destroying what?
No, it's embracement, right? That refuses the kind of Du Boisian double consciousness, right? That's the kind of mimetic claim of the 1AC. We think that embracement in the context of surveillance apparatuses, which is why we've made a specific claim in the context of surveillance and what that materially does to Black folks and how we then engage with those practices, is net good to understand, the ways in which we could go into the Kool-Aid, right? Slip into it to understand ourselves through those tropes, through those analyses. What is the counter-analysis and way that can materialize that is successful for Black folks? The 2AC will have examples, of like how we've defended that materially, but that's the 1AC.
All right, cool. Asia, I don't have another card for you, so like you can just go ahead and read it, and then like you can just stop the speech when you're done.
Give me 1 sec to send it.
Oh, and for those who aren't, like, this is the stream, not to y'all. This is definitely the 2019 college topic, 2018, 2019 college topic. So if you were like confused of what's going on here, that's what's happening. Bulk incidental data collection. We out here. Nobody was about to refashion a whole new app to this resolution. They don't debate.
We didn't even talk on the thing anybody wants to talk about.
You like not here, not now, not in my professional career.
This is like an oasis from the actual college topic.
You said what?
This is like an oasis from the actual college topic.
Oh, perfect. An oasis. Yes.
Okay, yeah, I sent it. Let me know when you are good. I have a timer, but it is a janky one, so it would be useful if someone else was timing. Just so I don't go on and on and on. Not that I think that will occur, but just, for the sake of being prepared and fairness. Okay, maybe I don't have a timer. Just kidding. It's working though. Love that for me. And then like my speaker view isn't working, so can everyone just give me a thumbs up when they're good?
How many off cases is it?
Just one, straight down.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
And Eric, you're good? Cool. No permutations. This debate is a story of either or. We are forcing you to choose between optimism and pessimism for the sake of agonism. Win the black intramural debates. That's Myriad. In 18 moments, I are writing about phenomenon informed by the debate to agree to back this ontological consequences. The phenomenon has been chosen to debate the difference between these two reasons. How phenomenon used to think of blackness as a political possibility. One manages both readings, economy, and representation. The phenomenon to stand in. Undecidability does not diminish these two readings, but it increases it, which cannot be decided by the reading of phenomenon. Sex reveals both readings. They open the possibility. There's nothing that requires to settle on one favor. The ability of the one becomes a true interpretation of the anthropological pathology. Adds to the antagonism, the assumption blockage, logic of the affirmative hypothesis is gendered. Black subject is a side of political maneuver. The one I see seduces us with the reclamation of a lost agency and personhood that reflects a desire to be called into being as opposed to human member of dystopic but survivable America. Survival politics are the status quo, and I have witnessed its limits. We are here to tell you that we will not survive. We have learned the value of acting as though we may not wake up tomorrow. I am not bulletproof, a bomb-proof cockroach. So how might the refusal of survival politics as politics itself open a hole in the earth, no negative to disrupt the one I see and face the naked of blackness that's warren. In 17, blackness remains in existence without being an inhibition, without a manifestation, does not transform. It's any being of non-normative, otherwise the black transgender will never constitute a being or subject within the world because anti-blackness produced phenomenological ontological procedure embodiment might provide the ground for phenomenological experience, but black embodied experiences unexplainable and inseminable and ontological black trans programs. The gap between black existence and being through the coordinate and gender. The black is trans and gender is not transgender. The black is trans to queerness, but not black queer. The black trans is to the world itself as it is. The coordinates being the black transgender is teaching us the impossibility of finding symbolic coherency. The word gender is a cloak just for the face of the naked blackness. Understand black trans is undoing. The point is to be irresolvable tension between the ontology and existence between the undoing and the human gender. Black trans would unravel ontological humanism, which sustains the death drive, initiating tremendous misery, disappointment, and agony, not invested in the ontology which transcends and queer theory. Gums relies on Spiller's and Mountain to articulate a fugitivity as a black maternal recuperation that's vague. And Gums in 17, the book are examples of living black fugitively loving ourselves and the selves of each other, the other selves. This fugitive force usite is an escape usite. Spiller's as a fugitive context used in poetry. Self-expression spoke to students who could directly identify with the being of the person as black of the classroom. The before a black maternal recuperation turned as I am not the son of the Shiklak into Shiklak did not give birth to me. Shiklak is not my father. Mountain is a major influence on it's not my mother, and Mountain is a major influence on all my work. I am not the son at all. I am the father of my son and the son of my own destiny. The life that you live, whether you are a black woman or not, is a black feminist fugitive life. Gums description of fugitivity is a recuperation of an anti-origin is an attempt to recover a lost African ontology and assert a gendered feminine origin story of the new world as a phobic projection of the transcendent masculine part of their mothering is persist within this myriad. In 16, phenomenological critique of ontology is reduced to the political from the politics of representation of the word. Case includes the contingency of all that follows to say the meaning of the blackness is not prescribed in not prior to his signification and before it is raised the contingency is a moment within the escape of mimicry and identification, the impure avowal of imaginary longing for the colorless presence of writing of blackness is ceaselessly fugitivity. Mountain has moved towards a position in which what allows us to see is escape is not a blackness but a racist disavowal in order to reconcile blackness. Mountain has to rely on the pathology of the moment can only affirm blackness. This is an activity of escape which never escapes ontologies. Blackness cannot escape into its own fugitivity. Mountain's convinced like the black social life leads him to put on phenomenon the same company as Moynihan and Mountain's own placing a phenomenon into a tradition dominated by the representation of black pathology is also dominated in the need to present phenomenism as a pathological object. The first phenomenon to pessimistic names, for example, of phenomenon to black or not black enough known has to absolve the violence in which presides over the entire world into violence and the freedom that made possible by the violence to avow the social life of blackness and aesthetic affirmation. This violent attempt to erase anti-black violence can be repeated indefinitely as an anti-blackness continues to describe the Afro-pessimism as a project. A black life is not social. A black life is a social death, which is before any other obviously always violent. Blackness must be understood not as a lost object or a material mark of deprivation, but as a never having had. Spiller's theorization of black maternal, which Gums cites as black feminist fugitivity, is pathologized black masculinity in a way that the act performs another disavowal, the erasure of lynching, castration. Their theory of mothering relies on a second wave feminism and transphobic body politics as myriad. In 98, legal enslavement removed the African American male not so much from the side of the mimetic view of the partner in the prevailing fiction of the father's name black fraternity and the disappearance of the level of identification of mimesis that cannot introduce into representation of supergirlic ideal of the black child, the black father into an object of more guiltily just about precisely because of his institution represents the son's own self-interest, the desire to be named as a father, to be violently instituted by the white male, desire to be reinforced by the lynching of castration of black men. Scholars argument leads to the under-interrogated the violated black father for those sons and daughters who cannot help but identify them as a necessary condition of their own social identities. The black paternity constituted through its absence to which they remain enslaved. Scholars fails to clarify the precise link between the black father's symbolic death and his loss from mesis. This moves identification out of visibility. These children cannot identify what they see as they cannot recognize themselves in the social magos of black fraternity. Scholars is an account of black filial identification, assuming that identification with the father only takes place if it was a positive image of fraternity. It's not overlooking over the drive towards the identity, which brings the desiring subject into being. Scholars use the word mimesis appears to restrict into an equally problematic qualification because the black father is already socially dead. If he cannot be murdered, agreed to be killed in his absence, to find out what is lacking. The traits of the default to pass from the generation to generation can black mothers dispel rather than affirm the melancholic fantasy of the father's absence. Scholars argues the traits of mimesis should be understood as a return to the name of the mother. The African male has been touched by the mother in a way that cannot escape the name of the father, necessarily interrupts the maternal dyad of introducing into the place already occupied of the maternal desire to lack into child's imaginary, which allows symbolization to declare the symbolic function of the name of the father's introduced absence, prevented the child remaining trapped in the maternal real or proximity, which will result of a cyclist. The spoilers of the father reclave is always already shadowed by the violated father's castrated body, but which was in the backshot has a choice between maternal mutilation and maternal abjection. Does not thinking of the mother as the presence of forget the fantasies hateful underlying the hateful identifications between the black mothers and the absent fathers, which you can sanction a mother's violence against the sons. You ain't shit just like your daddy. Moten's theorizations of blackness seeks to detach it from the black people, allowing enough solutions for non-black people to use the blackness as a philosophical enterprise. Just leads to a form of clearing because it justifies the move away from analyzing ontological anti-blacknesses and into an intermediate realm of flux that it avows the violence of its own making. That's foreign. In 16, blackness is ontological power to the legislative regulated power to have brought into existence, but the blackness is prior to ontology. Blackness is violently appropriated during slavery. What would be called blackness, a ontological pathogen Motens, maintaining the distinction between black people and blackness entails a crucial metaphysical object. The Motens work with critique of Afro-pessimism that it collapses and is a distinction confusing blackness with black things. And once this distinction is collapsed or obliterated, blackness and black things are presented as pathological, wanting, and inadequate and deadly. There is nothing to escape from, since the distinction that Moten posits itself is a product of political ontology that he has got in somewhat of a performative contradiction. The relationship between black people and blackness is not one that Moten explicitly articulates, primarily because he has attempted to detach blackness from black people and to conceptualize blackness as a mystical abstraction appearing to the world. The impasse is precisely the violence Afro-pessimists see at the heart of such enterprise of escape, fugitive freedom, and emancipation. Moten is still entangled in the very metaphysical ontological enterprise that wants to escape because its analytic depends on the distinction between blackness and blacks. If blackness and ontology are unavailable for one another, then blackness and parallel ontology are just unavailable and incompatible.
Oh, hey, do you have any more time?
Yeah, I have 1:30.
Read some of the cards that are in the email chain.
Okay. This is the mode of inquiry and informative here with Warren. Anything black torture, global sadistic pleasure, punchable. I was invited to a festival of humanism. Presenters would be shared solutions. Yes, we can rhetoric. Yes, we can rhetoric. So this is argue that blacks did not realize how much power they had. The professional law employees to keep fighting for legal change because the law is powerful. And I thought that the three-fifths compromise and the sharecropping anti-blackness will continue without its end as long as the world exists. The solution presented by the relevant anti-black instrument humanist effect is merely provided a temporal reprieve. The form might alter the anti-blackness will remain constant despite the power of political yearnings. At least we are not slaves. Someone shouted, read the 13th Amendment closely pressing the ontological question present here that security is not ethical, claims to no longer anchor the terror of inhabiting existence outside of humanity. Ontological terror is an unending destruction of black being. That's Warren. In 18, what renders ontological terror so vicious? Invisible but not perceptible, unlimited destruction and scope. Ontological terror engenders unending instability without releasing any black can become the target. The paradigm materializes the free self and the physical is documented creates an unending instability since materiality is not a permanent, is vulnerable to manipulation, profits therefrom invisibility of the violence uses lies the vehicle through which it violates and renders black freedom another form of captivity. The terror is an outcome of metaphysical Holocaust. Yeah.
Okay. You good?
Yeah.
Sweet. Okay. So you've made two link arguments: the Marriott 16 piece of evidence, the Marriott 98 piece of evidence, both to scholars.
Yeah, there's another one, but yeah.
Well, I'm just referring to this.
Well, what about
I just wanted to be clear that more than two.
Okay. So both of those pieces of evidence are in the context of scholars that Gum cites. Why did those disprove the idea that closing the loop is a good idea?
I'll take the question. Oh, I'm sorry. No, go off. Okay. Okay. So the reason why we indict Gums is because Gums is the article is literally debating Gum 17 evidence is talking about Gums's conception of fugitivity, and she says that Moten is central to it, and also that Spillers is. And so that's us contextualizing and framing what Gums means by fugitivity. We think fugitivity then for Gums is the mechanism for you closing the loop, right? You need a mechanism for the app. I think fugitivity is part of that, and I think that if you disavow that portion of Gums, then that also is another move that disavowed literally what we're talking about in that form of erasure. That's why we think that that's
need a definition test.
Starting point for the critique of the app.
I have a question, just like at a very link level. Define fugitivity.
What do you mean define fugitivity?
We're talking
specifically about Gums's conception of.
Okay.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Define just a definition.
Well, I think
I don't think it's a definitive definition of fugitivity. I think that's Moten's argument.
The definition that you are holding the affirmative to, is that better? The definition.
We're not holding the affirmative to a definition of fugitivity, but more so we're critiquing the underlying theorization of Black maternity, because the Gums evidence is actually talking particularly about Gums's conception of the Black maternal, which I think is really central to the affirmative, right? So if fugitivity, if you think that's not contextual to the app enough, let's talk specifically about the Black maternal, because Moten's
I was interested in the fugitivity part, but heard you. If it doesn't apply to the app, we'll move on. Julian.
Right. I think that Moten's understanding of the Black maternal, right, and his discussion.
My question wasn't to the Black maternal stuff.
Yeah.
That was to the fugitivity.
I'll move on.
And that's why the link with Black maternal.
Why is it good to have agonism in Black intramural debates?
Sure. So I think in the context of like everything that's going on right now, or like the ways in which Black people have found themselves yet again in a certain proximity to death, right? It is important, right, to like not situate ourselves in a world where it's like, okay, well, all of these things or all of these like approaches to anti-Blackness, personal or not, right, can coexist. Because in a world where we believe that to be true, right, we find ourselves at a point of stasis, like not stasis, but like complacency. Right, so it's just like we need to recognize that there is like a capacity for niggas to be anti-Black, and in that capacity, right, we need to make decisions that are good for Black people, or that recognize that not every decision, personal or not, is good for others, niggas in particular.
That makes sense.
Heard you. Hey,
wait, Jasmine, can I take like 1 second to prep for a question?
Oh yeah.
Okay. Why is it necessary to choose between pessimism and optimism for agonism? Why does agonism require a choice between the two?
Right, Asia, I'll take this question. The forced choice is because the debate between pessimism and optimism creates a greater synthesis of like argumentation toward the end, right? Like basically it's an argument testing argument. So like we are able to hone our arguments and our skills as revolutionaries together when we take up those positions like that. We think that when we start permuting and we start getting into questions of combining the two, we start losing the ability to sharpen.
Are permutation just a combination?
Well, I think that's a debate we can have.
Okay. I'm gonna stop real quick. Squid, can you take the host position so that I can move in out of a room? Is Squid there?
Yes.
Word. I'm gonna give you the host. Which one should I be giving it to you?
Also, Jasmine, it only gives
one right now.
option to join the breakout room 1, and I know you said that was for the AF, so I don't know.
Yeah, I can. So let me just allow for move. Do you want to go to a neck prep room right now?
I don't care. I just figured that's what was happening. If you all are taking prep or what's going on.
Yeah, I can move you to breakout room 2 right now. And then Eric, same thing. Julian, looks like you're able to. Squid, and you know how to do this, right? Like to assign and stuff, I'm assuming. So if people have questions, you can deal with it. Try to move them.
Sure. Yes, I know how to do it. Yes, I can deal with it. Sorry. The sure sounded sarcastic when it didn't need to be.
Oh. You're prep, yeah?
Yeah, I'm just doing like rooms really quickly.
I just wanted to make sure because I was like.
Heard you. No, so wait, Squid, just the one that has the like. I know that you have two.
I only have one on right now.
I'll make you the host.
Bet.
Change it. All right, Julian, let's meet in breakout room 1 before we start prep. So for those who want to join us in that room, yay.
I've been assigned to breakout room 2, so is it possible?
What can you move Julian to breakout room 1?
Oh, okay.
Where?
Squid, do you have access to the email doc? The email chain?
No, he doesn't.
I do not.
Oh, okay. Okay, I was just wondering if somebody would be able to put it in the chat, but I don't want to distract from the debate.
Yeah, 1 second. I'm not even seeing the breakout rooms.
Well, do we have to use a breakout room if they're in a breakout room?
Oh, if they went, then that's true.
All right.
That's big facts. Okay.
All right. Okay. Are we preparing?
Yeah, we'll start now.
Okay. My initial thought is just that these link arguments do not disprove the idea that closing the loop is a good idea. It's like regardless of whether or not they disprove portions of the affirmative are a good or a bad idea, they don't disprove that the action, like the telos of the affirmative, is a good idea. So if we have any justification for why the affirmative is good, it means permute. And like the alternative solves the problems that they have with the aff, but then the aff, outweighs all their offense because it has a material impact.
Right.
It's just like when they devolved from like fugitivity to just the black maternal, it's like fugitivity they could argue is like important for the like method, but like not the black.
Which is why I was asking in cross-sex, like, okay, this sounds like a link to the to black maternal stuff. Where does fugitivity into the chat? Because also where is the contextualization to how Gums is talking about fugitivity versus moot? These are two different discussions that are happening.
Exactly.
Okay. Yeah, I think I'm good then.
All right, sweet.
709. I'll send out the document. I never send out documents, but I'll send out documents. And to Harrison, I'll put the 2AC document in the chat.
Oh, can you also send me the linear stuff that you were working on?
Yeah, I'm still writing it. I'll send you the part that I finished, but like I can also send you.
Are you typing the lemma line for that segment, or do you want me to? Because I can. I just want to know.
Can you type the line by line? I was doing a more framing analysis thing for you, but if you could do the line by line of it, yes.
Yeah, 100%.
Plus, that's gonna be a slower portion of my speech anyway, where I can break down and go, this is the distinctions that I'm making here. That.
I'm gonna need that.
Heard you.
Oh,
Heard you.
man.
I'm out of practice. Oh my god.
Don't cap.
Then what am I?
I'm about to say, look, what am I? I think I'm the most out of practice out of
Fair.
Started the whole debate off being like, so Eric dropped off the face of the earth like 2 years ago and just resurfaced.
One girl with the like Harley Quinn background. I don't want to butcher your name, but you were right. That was Julian's fake laugh. I agree.
Oh.
Wow, Asia. I can't.
Well,
Wait, can one of y'all, just because like for my desktop, I've not downloaded Word yet, so I can't like upload things into the chat. Can you upload my 2AC into the attached file of Zoom? Thank you. I appreciate it. Okay. Woo! We have light. Okay. Let me get something that I should have thought of before this, of where I'm gonna actually do the debating part. Ooh, yes.
You walked way over there.
Spice rack.
She's trying to show off her outfit. Like, we know it's cute, Jasmine. You ain't got to show it off to us.
Oh my gosh. If this is the cute thing, y'all have no idea. Okay. All right. Spice rack. Let me know once you attach it, and then that's when I'll do my thing.
Okay.
But I do want to say to the folks who are in the Zoom, just because there's a document in front of you can mean that 70% of what's in the document is not what I end up saying. Which is why I say flow. Yes, cool. I hate that y'all are looking at me that. Let me just move it up a little bit. There we go. It's a little bit more personal. Okay.
Oh, this is weird. I haven't debated Jasmine in a year. That's wild.
It's ooh, I'm telling you, it's all weird. All right, we're good to go? Awesome. Let's do this. The rupturing of black women's flesh will be classified as a child of the exchange, not only gender the loss of ability to fully express speech, the truth is not possible black walking life in the globe, but also politics, how white cis men arbiter and outward speak by independent variable for determining what it means to be a terrorist, deviant, criminal, libidinal economy. This creates the conditions of the status quo book of digital dialogue, which should be understood as the accident or contingent event of abuse of executive power, rather as the continuous historical principle of modernity that requires the forced choice of voyeuristic, pornographic, and instrumentalized supplement for white institutions as a nuance to be eliminated and drained to reveal the impact of the internalization of external values such as the Du Bois double consciousness, with impacts like the black people medically filling in for white people, like when we become police officers, black prosecutors, or particularly to focus on criminalizing black people and repressing national complex, or even such as within these resistance strategies of activist movements like the house sneaker that always hold when the Slender was all going to rebellion. This results in internalized surveillance and yet increases in criminalization of our own that work for that further creates a pipeline to death, enrichment, such more and rare national complex that are complex that's going to complicate a large portion of the recognition projects of the 1AC. They assume top of this assume top of them, and we cite either what is it happens when we fill in for white scopic pleasures or desires, the ways in which we perpetuate violence onto our own souls. But what does that mean intramurally when we perpetuate that same aggressive? Their answer would be that no, we should devoid back into the kind of form and nature which strive to cleanse of blackness is always A, inevitable, or B, there's no way in which the alternative is able to resolve it. Does not be 1AC. Now, the 1AC affirmation of the closely living form of throwing shit on the surveillance or change the flip C, metaphysical script on who gets the gaze via the counter narratives and poetic interdestruction of the 1AC place in the site of crisis through which modes of meaning making and relation are interrogated led to breathe the name of our course of let's go. An example of our method is 2013 activists in current civil the FBI and the Department of Homeland Security that revealed about Black Lives Matter activists being surveilled and considered black identity extremists, which leads to legal suits and excessively re-entry of government practices and spoke to the freedom practice, which means top of framing before I get to the framing of the 1MC is that they have no link arguments to why closing the loop as a structural position to solves or why our kind of analysis would not lead to the conclusion of a restriction on surveillance regimes, which is the referendum of the ballot, if there was one, or even if I did care, which I don't, but the same for the pedagogical value of it is a referendum of restricting the ways in which those regimes are purposed onto black folks, but onto the framing proper. Once the affirmative rejects the negative, assumed smooth relationality of the black is through abstraction. Our argument will be that contingent factors expose the ways in which the black psyche is not absolved from its phobic desire to obliterate the black maternal / improper reproduction in favor of gratuitous freedom. Number two is there are psychic investments in black female flesh that traps her in a space of simultaneous optimism and pessimism, and so far as it produces conflict and material gains, which means that even if you think there's a small gap between the affirmative and the negative disability within the bulk order as part of the negotiation of assimilation of black women's labor, that's the point A. You should not affirm presumption against the 1AC in the context of debate because your question that should haunt your orientation to the average. When does the unthought become thought? When do the thank yous and affirmations of black women mean something beyond a words traveling through the symbolic field of relation built from her absence and sustained through her production? Flag this as a fashioning of aesthetic style which turns any of their spillover claims or internal arguments to intramural relationality. This is going to be really important because they have said representation bad. We will say the way in which the encounter of black life happens at material level is through representation. The ways in which you understand the reproduction only understands black women at the level of the ways in which they produce care and therefore launch them into, again, if we win, that their kind of artificial line of competition is bad, and only sutures a kind of negation as pathologization is a good at the level of the abstract, and you should default to the 1AC is the only contingent referendum of what does it mean to navigate and deal with the kind of extensive anti-blackness. Now, this is a fair and best misstep for education because we are not immune to the level of the unconscious, and therefore discourse should be held in suspension and critique as it relates to the impulses and desires of the flesh of black women, creating the vast academic and material approaches that seizing discursive capacity locks black bodies by black women flash in the particular into these icons of turfy, hating, women should learn when you teach black women and reading book their construction of the response to the memory, which cycle of slavery, gender exposing mode of violence and a manner through which understanding of less framework, larger complexity, new level of psyche, political, ethical, and level of investment, spiritual focus, really like black male, it's just mentally comprehensible standards we have at large, then reading the cycle of slavery through both the reasons back from the lectures, the text, living and not strong, we could practice that, thinking through the and trying to live both the black life and just social, otherwise the black woman's suffering operating visibility, the black unconscious writ, large and psyche, which unleashes uncalculable aggressivities toward the black woman, black woman's flesh, and undergirds how undries and sexual analysis with the unconscious self, the obliteration of her suffering, our collective imagining of black and black violence is a hurting of flames, so untuned to their habits of black woman flesh, check with the mucus ideological purchase of the black woman mother, of course, the articles in particular, the critique. In the face of such narrative, the one sees refusal production as an anti-elder political stance, which is recognized that black women were always already enough that says that they forget the non-black policy infrastructure that are trying to fix and act upon black responsibility options and let them breathe with how they want to, i.e. a refusal of the poison double consciousness. Once again, we will defend representation good as a way to understand the ways in which black within the interview we push each other to be expunged, and as a comparison test, which does not allow for any kind of testing or accountability for how we call on black women to produce it only to mimetically fill in for themselves to provide a larger artifact of the world, which is the reading of the Tiffany Nelson, also to filter the entirety of the length of it, but also why the alternative is just net bad. Also, issues one is that we eternally can all agree that black people will inevitably experience all this, but it's a question of what we do in the face of that violence, which is solvency advocate for work ideas, but why everything else will how to bring you the ways in which we understand the kind of a premise of black as proceeding and exceeding the moment of capture, but that you have not moved outside of that capture, or that you are before that capture, but you are in embracement of the ways in which your life is not able to be sustained or a property relation to the other, which is what when the one AC focuses too much on the roach, but they question of not just like the use of linguistics, but the function of those linguistics to make a particular claim of closing the loop as a form of disarticulation and a move away from the ways in which we are consolidated to understand our bodies only in very static loyal modes of grammar. Now, B.S. commodification labor is that the one that needs black women such as Harriet Tubman, Jordan Truth, Angela Davis, and Sada Shakur, Marsha B. Johnson, Audre Lorde, and Jordan Center, Lynn, and the infinite number of black women that existed and will come afterwards to produce their moment of indecision of refusal in the first place. The analytic or creative disagrees with the psychic and discursive practices that treat black women's labor as a material mythology, with the negative only engages in a form of porn, with that lots of discussion of black women's life as a pathology and implicates the negative criticism as the entire one is feels and else 9 minutes of offenses are pathologizing reader black women that foreclosed any possibility of disconnecting. Now, Meredith's analysis and skill Mises poses the black mother and tackles both psychic and material violence on black women within the intermittent survey 18. Due to the historically specific relations of power underground black maternity is banished from less down the process of identification and desire to look where we got the elimination of black mother and the essential all black women is always already a battle for more than just be black child or of gender. This object desires the freedom of everyone, including one's black self, and full interventions works to extend the preamble psychological effort to account for these in particular the socio-cultural impact of New World and slavery on these symbol just black female flesh establishment through a site of breach and violence that receives an instinctual drive which is repressed and it is through the black women, they both subjected and repression and the dark conflict, the process of identification for black people separable from the essence of black community, the black maternals, they rival conceives violence directed against her for being the very negation of the balance black, but as also amazing to demonstrate how black fathers as well as black sons, daughters, and non-binary children can adopt boys, cover pleasures. These pleasures are constituted with that it has progressed the banishment of the black woman's flesh, and the black mother is necessary to for flesh for the white or other non-real, the symbol registers, the symbol of the consciousness, are objected by the imago, and then they represent this frequency of action all upon me, and then welcome to large. Now, last argument is going to be survival. Don't think we're going to link to it, but I will then what's the question of durability and resistance, rather than queerness, that the kind of queer invocation of closing the loop of not reaching for subjectivity, but rather a dwelling in the embracement of the kind of we that was never meant to survive that cannot be traced with the cap for the 1AC. One is the permutation as a way to understand the 1AC's kind of a referendum to the 1AC to hold you accountable, because you did not close the loop, you open it up and expand it to continue ways in which the rising the black women are also the reason for why we just don't understand it. Survival is a pedagogy that will pass on ways in the improvements that are survival battle in the way that it comes from labor and practice reflection, the practice of rising to not survival, return critical return with fresh political economic framework form, arms with the next as well as the performance instead of having fiction that produces a lot of references and survival of prevention for today. Some conclusion that political never we were meant to survive.
Survive.
Do not read the double stuff.
Um.
Let me just get some. Put this back, or put this down and get some water.
Jasmine, can you bring me water too?
No.
Oh.
It'll get to you in 3 to 5 business days.
This is no. This is alkaline John Ellis water. I can't share it. Sorry.
Okay.
Wow.
Jazz, you ready?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So I guess my first question is that the 1AC and the 2AC seem to speak a lot to like the thesis or the idea, right? That like Black women always already should be enough, which is sort of like the use of like the roach, etc. Am I correct about that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So going from that point, right? If Black women are always already enough, what they are doing is enough, their existence is enough, why is it that you or any other Black woman for that matter have to close the loop?
I think there's 2 responses. One is an intergenerational response that to be like the is already enough is not always recognized, right? In the ways in which we have encounters between each other as Black folks, which is why I agree with a large level of thesis at the bottom of the 1NC, right?
So it's a question of like recognition.
What? I'm sorry, because
it's a question of recognition.
Right, so like in the surveillance regime, right? This is the kind of field Negro versus the house Negro versus
Sure.
Black folks that become cops. That like
Sure.
when those encounter like contingent structures, that moment needs to be engaged, right? We can say in our prologue, like, I am beautiful, I am this, I am amazing, but like, what does that mean? Moment through which that violence operates, what is the lens? How do we understand ourselves? When we're like, that's just like the mantra, right? The 1AC is that kind of analysis, but also test to why closing.
I'm confused as to how we get from reading the 1AC or the closing of the loop, and then we get to like being able to successfully engage with like niggas that are cops. Like, can you explain it to me? How does closing the loop resolve Black people being cops, or like result in a form of accountability between those things, or between those distinctions?
Right. Those are 2 separate parts of the 1AC. The Black folks turning into cops is the kind of understanding yourself through the kind of white scopic desires, right? Which can be like a process by which you don't understand kind of mimesis, right? The second part, I'm sorry.
Okay, go ahead.
And then, I'm sorry, and the second part of your question, that was the part that I honestly forgot. What was the second level to it? Like what the relationship.
How closing the loop changes the way that how we understand ourselves.
We would argue that it is because of the we would argue that it is because of internal link, Du Bois and W consciousness that allows for kind of the desire to reclaim oneself in the context of subjectivity in the world that leads to becoming a cop, that leads to.
I guess I'm just asking like what we refusal the 1AC to, because I'm confused how you and Julian reading this app, right? You like read it back at CETA, whatever. It's been read multiple times, right?
Sure.
So, like, what is the thing that the app does that results in, like, how do we know that niggas now don't see themselves through white lens? Like, I'm confused. It's like, what is the app do? What does the app do?
Sure. I mean, like, I think in a very kind of humble, non-hubris moment, the app probably doesn't do anything outside of this debate, right? To change the ways in which Black folks will interrelate outside of the debate sphere. But I don't think that that responds to the kind of Gums claim of how we know that we embrace this moment, our decision matter.
Sure. I'm going to take a little bit of prep, or like I think Eric might start prepping. So like while they're doing that, sure. I guess my question is that obviously you were going to want to win the debate, or you wanted to win the debate in other instances of reading the affirmative. So if the threshold that you have to meet is not to like prove the amount of niggas that you like change their minds, what is it the app has to accomplish for the ballot to be signed affirmative?
That closing the loop is an effective that closing.
So how do we prove that it is effective? That's what I'm asking. How is it effective? How do we make that
debate? We think that we have a method that responds to the internal links of the 1AC, that the negative engages in that debate as to whether or not our method is good, whether our analysis is true, who ends up winning that, and a question of who's the better debating that's happening is the decision-making factor. That even in the best result of the affirmative happening and winning, it doesn't materially change probably Black folks who have a desire, burning need to become cops. But we do think that it's provided a good analysis and lens to understand this new information that consistently comes in to us as Black folks, and to make a choice to either A, affirm a topical plan that just says, let's like get rid of body cameras. That does something, and not lead to a more nuanced discussion. We think the way in which we center the starting point of our discussion, and via closing the loop as a restrictive to our internal link arguments, is good and works, and the negative is not provided why you don't do that, or why we don't do that, then like you vote affirmative.
Jonathan.
Can we get a breakout room?
Just hit the button at the bottom, Eric.
Oh, okay. Look, clearly I don't know what I'm doing here.
Questions? Julian, any thoughts?
So, are you sending me the extension of the Terraface stuff from the framework stuff, or the Terraface stuff that you read on the K, or both?
It was more the framework stuff.
Okay, what is the evidence that you read on the critique say, and why is it? What's the implication of it?
That's the locking Black women into representation, which means that an internal link turns their argument for why recuperation and understanding Blackness, once it kind of mimetically fills in, is not a choice for Black women, and that they become.
It internally turns what?
It internally turns the Marriott 10 card, I believe, that they read in the 1 and C, the one that's like, we are white, we're from cis Black women, that stuff.
Yeah.
Right, that their kind of argument for why that is true, or why our kind of mimetic claim is incomplete or only applicable, only operates at the level of form, like identitarian form, Black women kind of being relegated to kind of the womb, but not looking at structurally the ways in which it's not just like the womb that produces that disidentification, but the ways in which Black women have been positioned as the rival for gratuitous freedom, because it's seen as though they access some type of liberal recuperation, right?
Wait, the way Black women have been positioned as the rival.
They can hear us. Okay, sorry. Continue. Sorry.
Positioned as the rival of gratuitous freedom.
Yes, it's because they have access, or because Marriott's claim is that for like Black fathers, Black sons, et cetera, that they are erased or kind of like gotten rid of in the kind of schema of a relationship to the object, a relationship to the child, right? That Black women are not erased from that because of a very kind of correlation between the womb and the product that is produced. That kind of slippage, the breach of being able to produce, to be kind of an incubator for a yet to come, positions Black women, right, as kind of being the rival for a gratuitous, a kind of unobliterated freedom that Black men will use as like a reason why gender needs to be disentangled, or a reason for why mimesis and representation is bad. I understand mimesis, right, as kind of that liberal representation, that we should devolve from that, but Black women can't devolve from that because of how they're structurally filled in over and over and over again, as kind of erased away from the kind of playing field or view of a relationship or right to claim ownership of anything, because they're not seen as either a human or having a relationship to that object that Black women are. They are now saying something about Black women having that relationship, but not looking at the kind of breach of the womb that creates a kind of ownership of child ownership, and that's the gender aspect, right? The Black female flesh is that kind of concealed suturing that goes before the id, or like the kind of psychic drive to want, to desire, the idea that she is present, that she is seen, that she is fixed, and Black men are not, and therefore why mimesis is bad. Miss the boats for how Black women mimetically fill in the idea of negation that becomes like what is pathologized. And we're like, that's bad because it unleashes psychic aggressivities towards Black women, because they're posited as either being overly present or able to move and shift their representation, when that's not the argument at all for what Black women are able to do. They're always made the thing that needs to be kind of ripped and pulled apart in order to kind of make psychic space for a discussion of anti-Blackness. And like, that was kind of its application, kind of largely to everything, right? But specifically to that Marriott evidence, is like they have said representation is bad, but in order for them to kind of understand gratuitous freedom, it requires locking of Black women as kind of the psychic fodder for gratuitous freedom, which would be.
I should do this on the fatherhood link.
Yeah.
Okay. Sweet.
And then I'll just keep on working on because like the frameworks of Loki's already written out in the context of like the 2AC framework, how I'm contextualizing it. That's just the arg of like number 2, or let me think right. of number. Well, 1 and 2, A and B just kind of contextualize in the context of debate. But like that argument is just there's an artificial line of competition being drawn between optimism and pessimism, right? No part of the card is like one cannot be pessimist and optimist or puts that in relationship to the 1AC. 1AC is a particular claim about the kind of ways in which mimetic closure for Black women is bad. You've not said anything in the particular context for how that kind of identity formation and how that kind of process operates or means in the context of affirmation and negation or pessimism and optimism, which means that 1, artificial competition is bad and parasitic and only is made possible through kind of the negation of Black women flesh, which is still representation, but then B, a justification for a permutation. Like nothing is neutral. That's all the stuff that I've coached you on, right? In terms of they assume an immediate form of relationality that because we are all Black, the kind of psychic desires that we all have are all attuned to the same thing. They are not. There's a reason why they are not.
Sweet. I'll send you the 1 arrow document in a second. What I have typed up so far, and you can let me know what to change.
Okay. Is everyone back? I just. Yeah. Ooh.
Okay, what's happening?
We're waiting on you.
Oh, okay, my bad. I don't have any cards.
Okay.
So.
What's
Give
the
me
code?
Well, it's disorder. It's just straight down on the K. Oh, actually, is there? I guess it's. I'm a signpost. It's straight down on the K, and then yeah, that's it. And then we'll see what kind of time I got. What is that?
I'm sorry, what did you say? What was it? Reading the YouTubes. Hey, stream folks. Hey. Yes, my desk is on its way.
Okay. I think I'm ready when y'all are.
1 second.
Oh, take all the time you need.
Already never occupied. Okay. That's a very quick. Not the yellow chair. We're not doing the yellow chair. Oh my gosh, y'all are
I missed the yellow chair, even if it was ugly.
Y'all are trash. Okay.
The yellow chair
love
is
my
what
students.
defines you
They're
as
so
a person.
amazing. Let's do it.
The yellow chair was so nice.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah. I have a special guest for everybody.
Hey!
Everybody, all favorites.
We don't have. Now we have 3/4 of those games.
We got 3/4 of it.
Oh my god.
Hi, Kenny.
Hey.
How are you?
I'm doing good.
Hey, awesome. How are you feeling about this, like, happening again, basically, but different?
It's pretty crazy because I
Kenny's on the
just
screen?
walked up here and Amy's like, yeah, we're debating this. Yeah.
Do it.
Have fun. It was good seeing you all.
Good seeing you, Kenny. That's awesome. All right, let's do it.
Is
Okay,
the thing on though? Because is the red light on?
Yeah, it is.
Oh, okay.
Okay. Y'all good? Y'all Gucci? Cool. When you say we are the roach, the most intimate form in your existence is only possible through the pathologization of our bodies. Whose existence are you referring to? This is the link we're talking about with the centralization of the feminine body as the quintessential image of the black mother because it erases the black trans imago. This is everything Marriott is talking about with the erasure of castration as an ontological terror that targets black flesh. We use Warren to go a step further than Marriott to argue that the erasure of castration is the glorification of cis womanhood because it fundamentally represents a phobia of the black masculine figure, which lashes out. This is our argument with Warren at the bottom of the 1 and C about the death drive that infinitely repeats the terror of injuring the black trans body as torture for being the anvil that sinks down blackness out of the possibility of being called into being. In this way, we think that the AF attempts to gain closure and coherence for an imagination of the world that makes us feel somehow more safe and more likely to survive. Is a mystification of the reality that the prisons are still here and we have no plan or action or anything that would inform action coming from the 1AC or closing the loop. They produce a linchpin for cis women to orient themselves or imagine in a world without anti-blackness, but that sense of satisfaction and closure sutures their subjectivity. This is the turn away that we're talking about. This is how fugitivity creeps back up into their method because the method itself becomes a broken record, an infinite loop that simply re-articulates the status quo. This rejuvenates their inevitable failure to produce the world which mirrors their libidinal structure of overkill. That failure leads to an unending cycle of remediation and incrementalism that gets exported into the overkill that happens to niggas on a daily basis. Our argument here is that when we go back to the Bay and Gums evidence, I'm actually gonna break this down for y'all. When we go to the Bay and Gums evidence, it's an interview where she's talking about the influences on the thesis that the dissertation the dissertation committee included Fred Moten himself, right? Because she was a student of Moten. So our argument about the sort of connection between Moten's fugitivity and Gums' understanding of the black maternal is something that starts in Moten's In the Break, because he's talking about the way that the screams and the lashes from the beatings of Aunt Hester and Frederick Douglass's autobiography is something that represents the way that the black maternal still rings through racial terror, right? It's an argument that he's using to make to say that there's still like some sort of Africanness, there's still some sort of African ontology that existed before the Middle Passage that survived it, right? Our argument is that the reclamation of that lost motherhood, that lost maternity, is one that they situate to cis womanhood that traps black transness into this sort of coming into being, right, of the gender binary, right? And so our argument is that we need to refuse a sort of understanding of black motherhood and the black maternal itself as a feminine form, but instead start to understand blackness and black transness as trans to ontology itself, as something that doesn't even cohere within the register of what gender is. Oh, actually, fuck. Okay, sorry. My documents like all jumbled up because I'm on my desktop and not my laptop. Okay, sorry, I skipped the part and I need to go back to the debate, the alternative debate, etc. Okay, sorry. Can you jump to the link debate? We're going to talk about the Transimago link and then alternative real quick. And then I think I'm going to move on to the framework debate. Okay. Position of the Black Transimago is structured through the vulnerability and the ultra-violence of overkill, which exceeds the normative frames of life and death that the app uses to reduce suffering to simple pain and an understanding that allows us to sort of move through or sort of close the loop, as Jasmine is speaking about. Their sort of understanding then of this sort of structure, or rather the slipping into the cracks of liberal humanism, is something that precludes the ability of the alternative to produce a fracture into the world, right? A hole into being that allows us to understand ourselves anew, that allows us to create a movement that can fracture anti-Blackness, can actually move to destroy the prison, can move to start to understand how we're going to live in the world after the end of the world. So our alternative addresses the structural antagonism of anti-Blackness by returning objective value to Blackness, which one, crushes the political capacity of the human and catalyzes the agency of the Black as phobic negativity, and two, removes the psychic burden of parasitic grammar of suffering. This links the co-option of Black rage to reconfiguring consciousness and upending the libidinal domination of Blackness as victimized incapacity. The slave's cause then is no longer tethered to a finite politic that allows itself to be doused with apologistic rhetoric, aka the sort of notion and understanding of the survivalism of the 1AC. Our argument is that we will not survive. Our argument is that we need to understand that there's a different orientation that we need to have to the world. Not everybody can look at the world in a way that is about closing the loop, but instead understanding that they may not wake up tomorrow. And we ask the question, I think the negative sort of asks the question of what does it look like for us to really live within that space, to wallow in the contradictions of the loop, right? To understand what kind of knowledge can we get from assuming that we will not wake up tomorrow? What kind of politics does that open up? What kind of ways can we use? What kind of acts or sort of forms of activism does that allow? Does that move us toward? Our argument is that the 1AC itself is not just a falling victim to presumption, but instead is a form of re-articulating the status quo as a way to sort of make us feel like we have a form of relief in the present. Our argument is that we need to fracture that understanding and actually depart from the status quo, because closing the loop is something that's very abstract. Our argument is that we need to move towards something that is less abstract. We need to refuse the sort of understandings of Black maternity that are centered on cis womanhood, and we need to also refuse the call into being that is the attempt to reclaim a lost African subjectivity as the quintessence, or rather the echo, of that Black maternal. Okay, I'm gonna move to the Marriott link real quick. Extend the Marriott evidence from the Marriott 98 evidence from the 1NC. Okay. Extend the Marriott 98 evidence from the 1NC. It argues that Spiller's understanding of the Black maternal itself is one that performs the erasure of castration. This ties into our Marriott 16 evidence, which critiques the sort of understanding of that reclamation, right, of the African mother, of the sort of lost ontology that the 1AC attempts to use as a form of sort of bringing Black people back together, repairing the injury to the sort of intramural that they're discussing, right? I think Marriott's argument here is particularly about what Gums is saying about being the father, or rather refusing afterwards, refusing the father, right? Refusing the before, and naming herself in that space. I think that naming of herself in that space is a fetishization of the father itself, and therefore also a phobia of the father, and that shows up as a phobia of the masculine form as well. Yeah. I was gonna do framework, but I think I'll let Asia do that. Yeah, I think I got all the links I need. Let's do this. Crossx.
Alrighty, you good?
Yeah, I'm ready to go.
Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, I'm ready to go. My bad.
I just want to make sure you look like you were like pensively trying to figure out
No,
what side of the debate. Like they
I'm trying to start
like what's that?
I was trying to set up this timer right here, but it's like on a phone, so like I gotta like, but also like I don't have my contacts in, so like I gotta look really close to like, and that's like my problem with your computer too, because I'm like up on the computer like this, because I'm So anyway,
I'm too straight now. Also, this is the gym. I'm not promoting the university that's tied to this, but I found a timer, so that's so much better.
Yeah, that would make my life super better.
Honestly, these things, why? But okay, ready? So,
yeah.
First question is survival in every instance bad?
No, our argument is not that survival in every instance is bad, but we think that we have a particular opportunity here to engage in a political arena, right? This is our argument, our framework argument about agonism, is that we need to be able to have a stasis point in a discussion about, like,
what is the,
survival v. like,
what is the unique opportunity? I missed that. What's the unique opportunity that's been given to us in this moment?
We are in an agonistic discussion with one another, right? We are engaging in a debate that is helping us hone skills and tactics to engage anti-blackness, correct?
So because, like,
since we are in a unique forum,
being black folks in a conversation that deals with kind of the intimacies of anti-blackness, it's important that we have an agonistic approach. That's the unique moment, question mark?
Well, I mean, it's of course it's important that we have an agonistic approach in a debate, right? Like you were talking about in the 2A referendum on the ballot, and we're saying that the role of the negative is to sort of refute in this debate, in the black debate. You're asserting what the role of the negative is.
Internal link question: how does that then respond to my question of, is survival bad in every single case? You said particularize the framework
that I'm critiquing. I'm saying that that's like that's our issue, right? That's our issue on the framework debate. Is that you're like, well, do we have to defend every instance of survivalism, or then also are there good? Hold on, but you're like, are there good instances of survivalism? And it's like, it's not a question of if there's good instances of survivalism. It's a question of like the either or between like survivalism and like movement building that the alternative sort of like endorses, and then also even the question of
what is the alternative endorse? What the movement the alternative endorses? That's new to me.
Right. Well, I say movements, right? But what more so I'm speaking about is like, how do we orient ourselves toward destroying the world? And the 1AC is definitely not destroying the world. So like,
but the alternative also then say that in whatever way in which you've articulated survival, that is good.
The alternative says that the 1AC's discussion of survival is bad, and we reject it.
Solvency level of what the alternative.
You have a unique link to the app, so I mean, like.
Well, you've gone
your
from
particular instance of survivalism.
Abstract the app. I'm asking, what is now basically what is the alternative?
What is the alternative? One, the alternative is a refusal to be called into being, right? That's what we're talking about with sort of refusal of ontology and refusal of being in the world.
What does that look like? What's gender?
It's also a refusal of gender binary, etc. We think that resolves the transphobia links, and we think it also resolves a rejection of.
But like, how is that less abstract than the app? Because you have made it.
No, that was the top level of the alternative. I think I explained also in the 2NC that the alternative produces objective value for blackness, right? And what we mean by that is it creates an orientation toward the end of the world, and prioritizes, right, us thinking about like how we're going to destroy the world as opposed to how we're going to survive the world and make the world more livable.
I have one more question.
That strategic difference in orientation is the difference between pessimism and optimism.
I don't want you to waste your beautiful breath, but I have a question. If I can use some of my prep for this. Last portion of the alternative explanation is that objective value. How do we know that kind of black folks' kind of orientation to this objective value is either A, the same, or B, net productive, if you are correct about the way in which you've contextualized kind of aggressivities towards trans folks? Like,
right. So first of all, I really don't even think we need to win the movements portion of this. So I want to partition that for you because, I think it's pure refusal of the 1AC. Because you're asking about the alternative, right? And so I'm answering your questions about the uniqueness of the links, because that's what the alternative question is.
No, but that's not at all. I'm literally asking at the objective.
What are you asking?
I'm asking
so the objective. Right,
that's what I'm asking.
I got the objective blackness thing, right? So I mean, objective value for blackness. That's literally just our argument about the shift in emphasis from optimism to pessimism. That's our argument. We said that we should have a pessimistic orientation toward the world. I explained this in the 2NC, that we should assume we won't survive, and see where that takes us and what kind of politics that brings us to, how that undoes our subjectivity.
Sure.
You said we could survive. That was your articulation of the roach. That is optimism. That is the negative creates that shift in orientation. That's the productive act the alternative engages in. That's how we move toward the destruction of the world, because we stop prioritizing survival and start prioritizing the end of the world, the destruction of the world.
Still many questions, but that'll be for the debate.
Okay.
Yeah, so obviously there's no cards for this. I was going to say obviously, but that would be an inaccurate representation of my speeches in the past, because I sometimes do read cards. Anyway, not the point. But there are not cards in this one. It's going to be like the framework permutation-esque discussion, but straight down, but it'll start there. And then we'll go to case.
Wait, so you said the permutation / framework, all can you just repeat?
Yeah, like frame, perm, alternative versus app situation, case.
Sweet.
Yeah. Could you vape quieter, nigga? Damn. Okay. Everyone good? Okay, cool. We are here to tell you that we will not survive. We have learned the value of acting as though we may not wake up tomorrow in the realization we appear in this debate to come to a single conclusion. The one NC for its radicality of choosing one or the other, either or. Black intramural spaces are full of texture and yield multitude of things in the face of anti-blackness. The importance of picking and choosing between pessimism and optimism resides in the necessity to hold one another accountable to our methods and what those things can result in. This sort of has, as Eric explained to the cross-ex of the 2NC. So how does it change the way we orient ourselves in other situations or in the face of anti-blackness? In the spirit of either or, you should frame both the permutation and the case debate through the lens of the necessity of the affirmative versus the desirability of it. Anything else risk narrowing the proximity between niggas and death, i.e. Jasmine does a really good job in the 2AC explaining the desirability of the affirmative. Yeah, it sounds great. Close the loop. Change the way that we understand ourselves, distance ourselves from the ways in which whiteness affects us and how we understand our relationship to one another, niggas becoming cops, etc., etc. But there is no articulation of how they sort of resolve any of those things. Jasmine just wanted to say that it should never be a black woman's responsibility to resolve any of those things, and that it should just be a question of the debate. But we have a couple of dissets to that, but I'll move to the permutation debate here. There is no space for a permutation, and there is not a permanent method debate per se. Permutations would be severance. You can't do the app and reject the affirmative. It severs out of the initial underpinnings of the 1EC, which Eric successfully in the 2NC problematizes. The links are not about not necessarily about just the misunderstandings of gender, but also their sort of color, their desire to be recognized. In this debate, there's only a risk of the affirmative, and the permutation in particular is a strategic inclusion and exclusion of blackness in particular instances, i.e. what is the purpose of talking about it in this space if not to resolve those things, which is why you will extend the framing stuff here, because it is why we must pick and choose between pessimism and optimism. Anything else allows for a sort of complacency where we never have to answer the question of what comes next or what do those methods necessarily produce. The second, all links are dissets of the permutation, Eric does that in the 2NC perms are for testing compatibility, and in this case competition, because Jasmine says in the 2AC or in the cross-sex of the 2AC rather, that this is about the negatives response to the 2AC, and that's how we come to understand the desirability of the app. The second is accountability. This should be start on your flow. The permutation incentivizes the affirmative to shift goalposts or more after the 1NC that assorts their advocacy by making it inauthentic and immediately suspect. There's a Mad Libs dissad. The performance of the 1AC and the 2AC is empty and plays into a parasitic game of call and response that fails to account for the ways in which it requires and yearns for a response but can never control that response, which means that anti-blackness will always be able to fill in and say, say in response to Jasmine's call me, well, call me what then? Call me nigger, call me house slave, call me any of these things. So what do we then do in the face of that? Jasmine concedes in the 2AC that they will never be able to resolve that we are always affected by the ways in which whiteness sees us. That doesn't mean that the negative necessarily says that Jasmine is culpable for that, but rather it sort of begs the question of what is the point of bringing it up if not to figure out what to do in the response to that, which is why we provide the alternative in the face of that, because it then becomes a question of blackness is transness. It is not something that can be even articulated or understood, which is the conceded Warren and 17 piece of evidence, which I'll get to on the case debate. Cross-examination of the 2AC is telling, and then Jasmine says that the only way to determine the desirability of the affirmative through debating the negative response. It is a double term with their arguments about black women always already being enough, because if that is true, then what is the unique value in making that recognizable, whether that's intergenerational or not? The impact is exhaustion, but also virtue signaling results in things like Kamala Harris, the case debate proper, vote negative on presumption, the app concedes, the app in closing the loop to do nothing to resolve the impacts articulated in the 1AC. They only run the risk of erasing the labor and resilience of black women that exists in the status quo, i.e. what is the purpose of reading the 1AC if black women are always already enough in the general? What is the point of making that recognizable? Because the result will always be fungibility, which Jasmine also concedes is inevitable. You should reject the 1AC and the poem and their understanding of double consciousness, exposing their inherent attachment to being recognized in the world as we know it, which is exactly what Eric's articulation or poem at the top of the Warren evidence is talking about, in the sense that it's like we have got to change our orientation and have to consider what it means that we may not wake up tomorrow, because the only thing unifying niggas now is our proximity to death. Extend the first piece of Warren evidence here. Blackness is transness. The way that the 1AC guns evidence understands fugitivity and resiliency and the survivability of blackness arises from their transphobic understanding of black women and mothering, in addition to the erasure of the black maternal. We as the negative are preferable because of the way in which we introduce and understand them as co-constitutive, i.e. the philiac attachment to the mother, but also the phobic erasure of the black maternal. You can also extend, which also means that you can cross-apply all of the articulation that I do above about sort of creating space for anti-blackness to fill in that column response here, because it allows for people like Rachel Doles also fill in and understand blackness as something that is allows for a transraciality to fill in the blanks, right? We have already assumed, right, the parasitic or the problematic understandings of blackness as just like a phenotypical, as an identity rather than an ontological relation. We think that the app is problematic insofar as that it only understands not even anti-blackness, but resolving those things in terms of just like what are resilient things that we can do. All of those things can be co-opted. Rather, the alternative understands like a pessimistic approach, understanding blackness as anything, as only, right, only understanding blackness as a proximity to death is better, because it allows for a sort of like absence, right, in the face of anti-blackness that is net better, because it can resolve, or at least is subversive in the face of anti-blackness in a way that closing the loop cannot, right? Because everyone knows after Jasmine started reading the Call Me app, it was like every tournament we went to, it was like, call me in the hallways. There is a level of attachment, right, that people can make to those things, even if not, right? It's just like all of that stuff is inevitable. So it is a question of which team changes our orientation to not necessarily anti-blackness, but rather re-understands what we can do in the face of that. If all of those impacts that Jasmine says at the top of this 2AC are inevitable, then what now, right? Which is why picking and choosing is important, which also probably, yeah, that's good. Sure.
Cool. We are unable to go to the breakout room, so can y'all go to a breakout room? Appreciate you.
Give me like 45 seconds and then I'll check in to talk framer stuff.
I think we have like 6:10.
Sweet.
Starting
All right.
now.
Just give me a little bit.
Are you good?
1 sec.
I thought you said cool.
Okay. Yeah, let's talk framework stuff and then presumption. Well, actually, let's do presumption first. What is the AT presumption?
The answer is 1, that you should not affirm presumption, because presumption is not actually like presume the quo, but affirms negation of the kind of representation of black male flesh. They've continued to extend this myriad evidence with no answer to teraffe at all. So like the threshold for buying the argument should be very, very low. But like that's exactly that, right? Is that presumption is that absenting. Presumption is that assumed relationality without any kind of forced kind of accountability to. And this is what I was getting to in Cross-Ex, is that like Eric does a really good job of like skirting around the conversation of objective value for blackness. What does that mean if it's oriented towards the end of the world? Do we all have the same goals? Is it all kind of centered through the same way in which we understand gratuitous freedom? No, it's not. Not responded to teraffe means that the kind of psychic drives that we have to kind of obliterate an absent black female flesh in favor of getting towards kind of teleologically, a non-anti-black world only forces black women further into the void in which anti-blackness fills in, right? Like there's no answer to that.
For sure.
The only other thing that I think that honestly, whatever you say is going to be perfectly fine. Only other thing that I would add is that, like, 1, this survival argument doesn't respond to the gums argument that we then, like I read in the 2AC, like it's a reach to be like, oh, dissertation, what's his face? Sorry, Moten was on panel, so therefore everything that comes is 350, more than that, 500-page dissertation is talking about. We have delineated survival not as just a subsistence of the body, but of the queer invocation that you are the thing that was, like, you are that which was never meant to survive in these kind of moments. That tethered with the argument of, they're just kind of conceding a contingency argument, right?
Yeah, I have all that stuff, I think. Do you have the extension for the teraffe stuff typed out?
I do. It's not the best, but I do.
If you have it, I'll just read it, and it'll be fine. It'll honestly be fine.
Okay.
It's like, I think we're explaining enough of the stuff around the page. Just, like, jump in at the end if I'm
yeah.
explaining.
Or can I just put it in the comment chat? Can I put it? Okay. Actually, I'll just text it to you because I'm on my computer. But can I stop prepping? I'll just give it to you on your phone.
Of course.
145. Are they back? Are they back, Asia? I don't think that they can see that squid when you put that in the everyone thing, because like you're in this meeting.
It said broadcast message to all.
So does that mean it goes to every room?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's the order?
Did you text that to me?
I'm so excited to hear from Julian. My God.
Oh, he's so kind. Wait, did you though, Jasmine?
I'm doing it right now on my computer.
Oh, okay. Then it'll be the case. And then we'll go the framework argument. And then the critique. Sorry, I just got that text.
Yeah, I forgot to put conceded at the top portion of that text. So just asterisk it up at the very top, what you say. If that doesn't make sense, that's also fine.
It's honestly fine. I'll just read it, and I'm sure you can explain it. I'm sure you can explain it. Let me copy paste this into my document though, real quick.
Oh yeah, ironic. That was a lot.
Wait, real quick, Jasmine. This is the extension of that you want me to read on the framework portion.
Yeah. Or no, on the alternative. Put on the alternative. I just thought about it. Put on the alternative. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry.
Okay. I already have that pretty much typed out. It's fine.
It really doesn't matter. Like it could be a
yeah, I got you. Okay. Yeah. We'll go then. Case framework critique. Yeah, indeed. All right. Let me pick up my stuff.
What's happening in the chat box?
Harrison is showing us a movie scene that now I have to check out. Yes.
After this debate.
Yeah, after this debate. I said after this debate.
Mm-hmm.
Harrison is blessing us with knowledge. I feel so lucky.
I can't see. Oh my.
Okay. All good?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
I don't know how I'm following this, but yes, sir.
Okay. Oh my god. Document's not up. Okay, sweet. The rectory of black women's life structures are present, creating the conditions for widespread surveillance that sees black women as problems to be trailed and contained, deviant, terrorist, and criminal. The impact is Du Boisian, double consciousness, except under the assistance of value that surveillance normalizes causes the outward projection of internalized anti-blackness, which results in the accumulation of black death, misogynoir, and turns their impact because it also results in the prison industrial complex, which is the primary source of the 2&T's impact argument that we for a closer solution to closing the loop flips the script on who gets to surveil, which jams the algorithm of debate that is predicated on the extraction of black women's life purely from the level of impact comparison. You should vote affirmative because the negative has a nebulous impact that at best impact turns our theory, but we said that our method, that our theory is but a component of solves material instances of anti-blackness resulting from Du Boisian double consciousness. The line-by-line top-level frame is that if you value agonism in black debates, then all of the new case arguments should be rejected for forfeiting agonism because they sandbag these arguments until the block presumption argument. Don't vote on it. 1, you shouldn't affirm it because it doesn't presume status quo, but it instead affirms the negation of black female flesh. 2, presumption is the assumed relationality without accountability to each other, which double turns the link arguments in the 2&T. Next argument is premised on the unification of niggas in our proximity to death. We impact turn those forms of immediate relationality because they lack black women into a property relation where their labor must always be elaborated in service of others, which will be explained on the critique. Page. The transphobic under the co-constitutive stuff will be explained on the permutation. Doesn't allow for Rachel Dolezal to understand black experience representation. Good will be on the critique. The levels of attachment stuff will also be on the critique. Framework debate. The we will not survive stuff. The top level frame about accountability is our argument. Holding each other accountable doesn't necessitate a strict delineation between optimism and pessimism. They've conceded the terrific evidence which says that black women occupy a position of both, which means that their theory necessarily is riddled with pathology. Necessity versus desirability is answered on the case. The no space for a permutation argument, not severance. There's a singular focus. DA, because we can agree that competitive method debates are good, but their interpretation of method debate is only antagonistic towards each other. Fractional regional strategies depend on the complex and persuasive structures that create civil society, which in turn only turns any of their impacts, links, or dissets. Good thing that we're going to turn all of them accountability stuff. We did not shift the goalposts. They don't have an impact to an inauthentic production of a 1AC. There is clearly no Mad Libs game. We didn't yearn for a response. The 1AC impact turns the call and response relationship of debate and says that it forces black women to black women into a situation in which their labor is called upon non-consensually, which is the call and response relationship that they've said we replicate, but in reality, that's our theory of power. The double turn stuff is answered on the case. The critique proper permutation do both. Despite disagreements about theoretical commitments, both teams' arguments are premised on the idea that black people are inevitably subjected to gratuitous violence, which means that you should permute our strategies, and we will win that they are compatible. The the net benefit is the ass telos and its representation politics. This debate is not a question of whose theory has more tact, but rather who produces a better material lexicon of tools for Black people to employ to counteract blackness. Clearly the affirmative and not the negative. Our practice is grounded in a material act of countergazing, which is an informed moves for Black freedom from breaks I signified passing the Underground Railroad to exposing documents concerning surveillance of Black activists. The alternative, however, leaves Black people with nothing but a structural adjustment in terms of analysis, which means that they don't solve their impact, and inclusion of the alternative in the permutation is necessary to ultimately their topical claim about representation is that it's good because Black women's female flesh is never absented, but rather her lever makes her known for freedom, but that can never occupy. Top of the overview argument about the roach. Those roach link arguments disprove a poem, not the action of the 1AC. The broad frame for link arguments should be if they don't disprove the closing of the loop good as a general principle, they don't rejoin the 1AC, which double turns their agonism arguments. Next, framing mystification stuff. They have no explanation of why the affirmative is a mystification of the reality that prisons are still here. Fugitivity doesn't creep back up into our method because the affirmative is premised on a refusal of the status quo. The top level link stuff. Our argument is that the recognition of the Black maternal doesn't disprove the idea that closing the loop is a good or bad idea. Yes, Gums was influenced by Moten, who was on, the dissertation committee, but the problem is that their link argument is to what inspired the dissertation, but not the dissertation itself. There's no link argument. Marriott has misused our fugitivity. The Gums evidence from the Choice conceded says that we have impact turned the idea of escape because it presumes that you're not where you're supposed to be. That capture presumes you don't have a right to the space that you currently occupy. The ass says we don't have to do those things, but rather survive, not as a reach for subjectivity, but rather a dwelling within objectivity. That takes out the transimago link, means that there's no reason that the ass is incompatible with moves to destroy the prison, but it's also not an impact. The ass fails to destroy humanism is a psalm suggested, but our offense clearly outweighs this impact's explanation. The alternative, obviously compatible with the affirmative. First portion about the alternative restoring Black agency as negativity is what the ass is talking about when we gesture towards counter surveillance. And the second component is about how labor is scripted on to Black women. Last stuff is the Marriott link argument. Nothing about closing the loop in the acts of counter surveillance. It entails necessarily requires the erasure of castration. It's then conceded to refe evidence. It internally turns their evidence. It says that Marriott's criticism of scholars understands a desire for gratuitous freedom rather than a desire of, which implicates the ways in which Marriott conceptualizes the psychosocial formations of gender in the call and response to liberate oneself from grammar because the Black maternal is positioned as the rival in his analysis who is given liberal acceptance of the connection between modernity and agency through the womb, but does not see the ways in which that orients her towards continual ontological negation. It doesn't. Our argument is that Black women mimetically fill in the position of negation, which outweighs their offense because it subjects them to violence. Their evidence, they just simply do not have a link argument. They have link arguments to portions of the theory of the 1AC, but they do not have link arguments to the 1AC. And then they said, vote for the team that has the best material orientation, which is clearly us.
You just got all the prep in America.
That's what I'm saying.
We got that strong 145.
That's what I'm
It's gonna be quick mental thoughts. Go.
But hear me out. I feel like you don't need that much prep. Like,
Whoa. They can hear you, right?
well, I mean,
You
yeah,
said.
but I said that exact phrase in the 1AR, so it's like.
But wait.
I mean, you were the one who sent me the only component that is like the huge structuring question of the debate. Is like you were the one who typed out that analysis. So I feel like you probably don't need prep for like the big Nexus question, like the Terraface stuff.
Yo, true. Just like
the explanation I typed out for Terraface was so fire, and then you sent me that, and I was like, is this not the framework Terraface? And so now I feel like we might be behind on the framework debate.
Well, we shall see. Wait, so you thought it was opposite? Like you thought that, so what you wrote actually fit more with framework?
No, what I wrote was basically identical to what you wrote. I just thought you were typing up Terraface for framework instead of Terraface for the Marriott link.
And that's because I'm confused, because like for me it's like all of that artificial competition built through representation, et cetera, et cetera.
Oh, okay. Well, then I feel like I extended enough components of that stuff throughout the flow.
Well, it's the thing. Like the pieces are there. I'm gonna reconstruct a little bit, but like the pieces are there. And you know me, I'm gonna just.
No cap.
What do you?
No cap.
Paint. Also, someone by the name of Danikman, 2000. Nico, N-I-K-O. Tell Carpet Sweater Julian and Asia I said hi.
Who?
Do you know who this is?
Who?
N-I-K-O.
N-I-K-O who?
Wait, tell who?
This is the comments right now of the YouTube.
Sure.
N-I-K-O. So like Nico, like debate Nico? Like Nico Battle? I don't feel like this is that Nico though. Well, hey Nico. I think it's gonna be fun. I'm already thinking through. I'm literally just gonna go for contingency framing's good, force us to deal within representation because it reveals the ways in which our kind of subconscious or unconscious manifests itself, right? Like they presume an unconscious that can be geared or that can be controlled purely. Oh no, Najara found the YouTube chat. They presume an unconscious that is purely structured on an ontological level, i.e. that refusal of what the affirmative does in the context of an orientation to the end of the world is not infiltrated at the level of the unconscious for how we have kind of built a relationship to even think or conceptualize of gratuitous freedom, of this kind of orientation towards death, which is gratuitous freedom, right? This kind of letting go of civil society, letting go of kind of the recuperation of the world and everything that falls in it, subjectivity, identity, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because like that's gonna be right. Their kind of reason why they don't, link to the link arguments, because they're like, we're amorphous, we're nothing, da da da. Therefore, we do not lead to this kind of recapitulation of gender or kind of a this last African ontology that somehow has survived, and therefore there's an argument for why we are this kind of mirroring of forced castration onto the phallus. What?
I got you. Also, this prep
is long.
How much do they have?
I don't know.
Like,
not this much.
Like 10 minutes. I'm asleep, bro. No cap.
Squid. Can you see if they're almost done? I don't want to be that person, but I'm also that person.
Jasmine, that's a double bind. What are you talking?
Not to be that person, but to be that person?
Yes.
It just means that I didn't care about the first statement that I made. It was more performative than anything else.
No.
Return with urgency, Squid. Doing the most.
Hey, I got you. I low-key was sitting over here being like, dang, weren't they supposed to start a speech already? I was like, hold on.
Hey. Oh!
Oh no, I just caught the Rona through my screen. You need to calm down with that.
Do you feel better?
That was a good one.
Hello.
Yeah, I didn't know what the prep situation looked like or whatever, but Eric just said that they were done, and then they went to the bathroom and they'll be back. So sorry, all y'all waiting.
No, it's okay. We've been just chilling,
Fair.
doing stuff.
So are all of these extra people in the Zoom? These are all students? Yeah.
Besides Oge and Julian, yeah.
Mm.
We got some Bing debaters. Oh, and Ronick at the very end. Well, he was. Ronick number 2. Ronick of Binghamton is here. But there's also Ronick High School Ronick.
Mm. What?
Oh, like the debate high, like, you know, the adrenaline that you get.
Oh,
live.
yeah.
And like, I find judging more tiring than debating. I mean, it depends.
It really does depend. Like, if I like the people I'm judging, like, I'm all in. But if it's just like, I don't know, randos or like it's a policy debate, it's hard. It's a very hard thing.
Like, if it feels more like my job, oh
yeah,
I'm just kind of like, well, all right, let's do it. And now this is why I gotta get a good chair. The chair that I currently have, I'm using my college desk. Not cute. So when I
use the yellow chair.
Are you done? The yellow chair is gone. We now have a couch, Najara. Okay? Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much.
I'm just saying that you could be using the yellow chair.
And I'm just saying? No.
What's wrong with the yellow chair?
You said what? That was to you,
You
Asia.
did a full 180 on the yellow chair. We were roasting it the other day, and now we're praising it.
There's so many things happening. Oh, yo. My back hurts.
There.
My back hurts. Like an old person when I say that, my back hurts.
I forget how fast debates go when you're a one-in. Like, I really was like stressed for a minute. Like, I was like, oh my gosh, I have to do all this prep. I need to do all this stuff.
And then you're like, haha.
And then I'm like, oh, it's done already.
You're like, wow.
Dude.
Live your best life, Tuin. Go off.
Right. Pop off. Have fun. What you need from me? Nothing? Okay, bet. See you later.
I'm gonna go.
Right. I'm gonna go chill. I'll sit where the judges are sitting. I'll read the room.
I'll read the room. I'll read the room. Okay.
Right.
Tuin mad. Just like.
It really be like that, though. Like with Kenny and I for a minute, like it was kind of just like, all right, okay, I'm gonna sit here, and then I'm gonna like these little G chats. Like I'm like, they're feeling it, they're not feeling it.
I'm here to read the room for you, and just like the middleman. Here. Yes. No. Boom. And then when you get the RFP, it's like, see,
right.
You needed that room filter.
Nah, man, it'll be interesting. I don't know what this year is gonna look like, the whole partner things, but it'll be cool. I'm excited.
You know your partner yet? No?
Nope. The question that everyone wants an answer to, including myself.
I mean, that is a question everyone wants to answer to. Who is Asia Butler?
Yeah, Lord. That's a lot.
Sorry. No one's talking about it. No pressure, no stress. It's online debate. There's like happening. That's what we're talking about.
I'm sure it'll be fine. I'm just kind of like, whatever at this point. I'm like, I just want to debate. Like, it ended way early for me, so.
It did end abruptly. Eric!
Okay, I must have gave this speech 20 minutes ago.
I'm crying. I'm tired. Oh my god.
I want to put I could have put my pizza in the oven. My dairy-free.
So you just gonna have pizza and not give any?
My dairy-free, gluten-free pizza, yes.
You see, I offered pizza yesterday, and now you won't offer me pizza today.
Was it dairy-free and gluten-free? No, so it was never for me.
No, it's the principle. It's the principle. You could have offered.
Offer you something that you can eat versus offer me something that I cannot eat.
Yes.
No, that means I'm out. I'm out of pizza. You're not. Because it's like, I knew you didn't like that, but I should offer. No. None of it.
Exactly. It's the principle. You have to offer.
For you to say yes and then me tell you no, JK? That seems worse.
Wow. I didn't do that to you, Miss Jasmine.
You also didn't give me pizza.
Well, yeah, because I had to save some for Harrison and Kate.
Once again, everyone else before me want the presentation of the gift, meaning nothing for what your actual intentions were. So it was a defense.
But you could have gotten some of the chicken or the cinnamon rolls. Don't come at me. I offered other things too.
And okay, I have nothing else.
Exactly.
Najara's an honorary Bing debater? No.
Thank you so much. I've always wanted to be a Bing debator my whole life.
Y'all are
I
got dropped.
Oh, Asia, I wanted to tell you something. Your name, well, your Instagram name comes up a lot in the debaters group chat that me and my friends have because my friend watched one of your rounds at Cal, and now she low-key be Instagram stalking you. And so, like...
What even? That's wild. I mean, but I love the band, though. What's up?
Oh my god, I'm gonna tell her you said hi.
No,
Those are mine.
I'm all about making new friends. Also, I'm glad people really be vibing over the gram because sometimes I'll be struggling. I'm like, should I post?
That was not to you, Julian. Sorry. I'm writing it again. Y'all are horrible. Yeah, and I said it before I pressed send.
You know who has a cool Instagram though? Not to be that person, Julian. I get so mad because it's like maybe be posting like collages and like stuff. I'm like, wow, this is an aesthetic.
I mean, I try. I appreciate the love. Thank you, Asia.
I try.
I try.
It is the Sailor Moon for me.
Thank you. I appreciate it. That was my favorite picture I posted.
Oh my gosh. Okay, let's do this.
I used to post better ones, but then they got 0 likes, so I was like,
oh wow, do what you gotta do for the feed.
That's what I'm saying, bro.
And not. What's the agenda?
It's gonna be an overview a little bit, I guess, and then like links, then framework. Yeah.
Okay. My paper. I'm just gonna new page paper and just follow you.
I mean, order has always been disordered for me. You know, I accepted a long time ago. I have ADHD, and it's really hard for me to put things into like structures the way other people do. So I just like said, fuck it, y'all gonna have to adjust and accommodate me. So.
But now I feel a certain way that you even attempted to say it's gonna be the framework and it's gonna be this link stuff. So it's like you say all that, but then you also did.
Eric. Talk your mess, Eric. Let him know.
I'm lying. Look, this is the thing. I always said, people ask me, just like, what's the order? I said, the order is this order. And niggas would get mad. But it's like, okay, if I answer you order.
Eric, I'm giving you a hard time.
I'm not going to do that shit during the speed. And then y'all going to be confused anyway.
It's going to be. I'm with you. The aesthetic, if Taylor was watching this, she already knows. It was. Oh, the kitty cat. Okay, kitty cat, what we debate. Let's do it.
Okay. Where is this? Sorry. Hold on one second. Alright, let's get it. refuse the call into being, refuse the gender binary, refuse the articulation of black female flesh as a Du Boisian veil for trans-exclusionary radical feminism, refuse the roach, refuse survival as an orientation to the world. Do not vote to make this world more livable. Vote to burn it down. Vote to reveal the nakedness of black transness. They ask you in the 2AC to think of all the things left unthought. And we ask, what about the unthought black masculine trans of a non-binary body? The roach in this poem, this is a quote from the 1AC, right? The gums evidence, the roach in this poem redefines survival. The roach, the speaker of this poem, reminds us we'll survive the social world that we speak to exclude them from in the present. And it is this survivalism that our pessimism refuses. We call for the end of the world, not the desire to make it more livable. We refuse to bring the dead to the living, vote negative to bring the living to the dead. They say that they defend representation good, and we take them up on this debate. Closing the loop is exactly that. It's a form of closure that tells us that we can achieve relief and freedom within an anti-black world. This tells us that we can find another way to make to save this world instead of throwing it away. We do not open the loop. We dwell in the lack of control. We are offered in the face of the loop. We wallow in the contradictions of the loop. Y'all have shown that black trans flesh cannot enter this enclosure, so we exist in excess of the loop, of the function and the method of the 1AC. They said that we do not indict the method of the 1AC, but only the theory. I call on you to bring to go back to the 2NC and listen to the transphobia arguments, because that means that this becomes an erasure of all the forms of transphobic violence that exude from the 1AC. Sorry, I lost my place. Oh yeah, sorry. The roach is not just a poem. Rather, it is not just an action of the 1AC. I want to go back to the thing I was saying about the sort of argument that Julian is making in the 1AR about us indicting the theory of the affirmative and not the method. Our argument is that we have a link to the black maternal itself. Right. This means that the sort of understanding of that is the link is just a sort of just to the mentor of the dissertation. Is literally our argument about these forms of trans erasure. The Marriott no link argument. The sort of this notion that the Terefe evidence sort of or the perceived concession sort of disappears. All of the Marriott evidence is ridiculous, because Terefe at best answers Marriott 98, but not Marriott 16. Also, the transphobia links are riddled throughout the 1AC, not just functioning through Marriott's analysis. If you want to talk about concessions, how about the top of the 2NC started with the link, a link to the tag of your first card. You said, quote, "We are the roach, the most intimate form of your existence. Your existence is only possible through the pathologization of our bodies." I call on you again to ask you, who is, like, when you say your existence, who are you referring to? This is an interpolation of both me and Asia's genders, because they've assumed that we feel that their sort of existence is something that produces the ground for all other forms of violence that exist that happen on black bodies. Now, our argument is, if you want to, it's also another level of the transphobia link is that Jasmine slips up in several times in the 2AC and says the black female flesh. As the phrase black female flesh, and there's no way you can tell me that a female is inclusive of all transmasculine individuals. Also, Terefe does not answer our transphobia link on Gums' use of spillers to articulate black maternity as a political orientation. The call to say yes to the mother within is part of Gums' dissertation, which is your first card. It's literally in the card. So here you are severing again and erasing your transphobia to get a ballot that doesn't even exist. I'm gonna go to. So the alternative is to refuse the transphobia. The 1AC is to refuse to call into being. That's the top of this. Of this 2NR. We think that the alternative resolves the links. Obviously resolves the links by rejecting the affirmative and sending them back to the drawing board. This is literally what we mean by the process of black agonism and argument testing, because it frames how you use the links as a form of refusal. So we don't have to win the movement's part of the alternative, and we don't have to win even that the alternative solves the link to win that the links are unique. So you can just vote on the links in the framework argument as a refusal of the affirmative, and that still allows for uniqueness of the links, because voting that way still allows for this sort of iterative argument testing that sends them back to the drawing board and makes them rethink their arguments. I'm gonna go to the framework proper. We reject this MOOC. In the spirit of either or, you should frame both the permutation and case debate through the lens of necessity of the app versus the desirability of it, of anything else risk narrowing the proximity between niggas and death. We will win this debate because the app's underlying assumption of blackness as identity instead of ontological relation. You should have a high threshold for the permutation coming out of the 1AR because one, all the links are disassed to the permutation and they've clean dropped the transphobia links. This is exactly what we're talking about when we say that they will never have that they don't have an answer. They will never have to answer for their problematic orientations and understandings of blackness. The accountability arguments that the 1R is making. CS2AC is telling Jasmine, she says the only way to determine the desirability of the affirmative is through debating the negative response. That's time.
$45. Oh, hi Julian. I guess we can just talk here. Next response. So that's not really going for presumption or an impact to that argument. So impact, don't have that affect solvency of affirmative. How are we called into being? Center that around contingency. Erg. I guess I would say that you're not a refusal. You are an affirmation of obliteration. Okay, into the world. Don't get there. Hey, Julian. Or am I just up on myself? That's fine. It's just 30 seconds of just Jasmine talk. Hey, everybody.
No, I'm back. I was washing my hands. What do you need?
No, nothing really. I was just like, I still don't get like the link argument to transphobia, like writ large. How
one of them is the 1R's use of the term black female flesh.
Okay, well, I got that, but like before that, like what the 2NC response, because I also said black female flesh, and that wasn't
the Marriott stuff, the
recuperating identity bit.
Oh, I thought it was the pathologization of the black father stuff.
That's fine.
Well, actually, maybe not, because it was the imago stuff. So you're right. Because they were like, you answered 98, not 16. So you're right. I was wrong.
For the recuperation.
Yeah. Okay. Like the escape stuff.
Heard you.
Yeah.
Heard you.
I'm gonna go wash my hands real quick.
All right. Ooh, slice rack one more time. 2AR. Whee. 2AR. Last time for the summer. 2AR.
Jasmine.
Yes.
So I forgot to tell you, or if you don't know already, but Rohit was watching on the YouTube live the whole time.
Wow. That's really a treat. That's really something special. Tell Rohit. All right, Eric and Asia, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here. I was just going to ask, are we dialoguing after this debate, or are we just calling it? I don't really know what you are.
If y'all want to, for the people that have like quick questions, if y'all are to dialogue, but if you're not, that's also cool with me.
I just didn't know whatever you need from me. I'm down. I just was like curious.
Word. The stream won't be dialogued.
Yeah.
Wait. The dialogue won't be streamed, but
No,
yeah.
sure.
Yeah. Just want to make sure Eric's here, or if wanting to be here. Ooh.
I'll message them real quick.
Heard you. My was in no order, but that's okay, cause we said F it. We said F it. Hello, everybody. 2 a.m. about to happen. But while we're segueing and waiting for that, do we have a message removed? Sorry. But while we are just waiting for everyone to get here, wanted to say thank you so much for watching this stream, and that this is just the beginning of, right, I'm looking at, look at this, not at this computer. Thank you, Nishara. But this is just the beginning of all things Debate Boutique. And I'm just really, really excited for the kind of pedagogical tools this provides, having more debates that are online, that folks who may not have the access to attend camps or the access to have access to private coaching, et cetera, that this provides these opportunities for folks. And look forward to more stuff on YouTube, look forward to more things in the context of like lecture style things, debate programming. We have that coming onto the website in a week from Monday. So we will have offerings for private coaching at affordable costs. I think some of the most affordable in the game. And it's curriculum design. So that means that it's not just here's a coach, talk to a coach, but before you even engage with the coach, we have already kind of assessed and looked at what your interests and goals are in debate for the year and building kind of design and curriculum. Something of what Debate Boutique feels like it is throughout the summer is now through the fall. So like we are working with you throughout the year. It might not be me, folks that we hire, but of course me, my eyes are on everything. So I make sure that the curriculum is following, as well as Caitlin Walrath, that you've not seen, who does a lot of really cool and awesome things in the background for Debate Boutique. So I'm really excited about that. And also merchandise, it's coming. Watch out for it, because the bitch is spelling home. B has spent way too much money, time, energy, and reflection on this. So, yay! Is Eric coming, Asia?
They have not responded, but I imagine you're good to go. I don't know.
I just don't want to assume, but you muted yourself.
I don't want to assume either. I just, I know everyone else has like things to do, and I think they understand that. So I think they're okay.
Okay. Yep, I said it. Merch. All right, so I'm gonna get into this 2AR. That was really not the goal of that fall. Okay. Eric, you're here in spirit with us. Respond to that 2R, making me sweat. This debate comes down to a question of how do we deal with the kind of contingent ways in which surveillance regimes produce mimetic capture of black folks. It's not a question of completely and purely being able to identify, explain the kind of extractive ways in which the structure operates on an ontological level, because that fails and misses the boat to explain or lead to an accountability metric for how we psychically drive black women and black women and black female flesh into a kind of obliterated stance that only perfects the ways in which we understand not only debate and competition, but larger level understanding the applications of the ways in which mimesis and tropes for black flesh operation has, which means that you can vote for the one that sees an affirmation of closing the loop as a form of throwing shade on surveillance regimes that flips the metaphysical script on who gets the gains, be the counter narratives of the poetic construction of one I see placing this debate in a state of crisis, which has flipped the uniqueness debate, not a question to just jazz and making a whole bunch of inevitability claims as the negative tries to contextualize the affirmative as, but rather as what does the affirmative do? What is the contingent moment inside of that capture? It's not a move towards outside or a move before, but an embracement of we are the we that was never meant to survive, an embracement of that pathology. It changes or challenges the ways in which we understand the encounters between black folks and ourselves in relation to this political regimes in the context of that representation, but does not mean that representation does not exist, which you have misidentified the sequencing argument of representation good, but rather that representation is the way in which black female flesh is put into dereliction in the context of the castration of black of the phallus, which we think is a misunderstanding of Marriott, which is conceded throughout the debate, but given a good FYI, maybe stance of me too, and I, which I'll do more work, but loud now the framing part, no, you do not get to create an artificial line of competition between optimism and pessimism concession of that is filmed through the lens of objectivity that is presented through the absence of female black female model that is not going to link us to the transphobia. So once again, I'll get into the critique probably because, like, yes, maybe that was a valiant tip in the 2 and R, but it's not grab at the level of the theoretical exchange, but the way in which you parse through that negation is through an affirmation of black female flesh obliteration, which means that that should not contextualize the ways in which you give a definition for optimism and pessimism, but rather justification for involving the 1A sees a level of permutation for contingent action against the civil society as a way to understand oneself not within the kind of info real debate, which also means that presumption and should flip affirmative, not in the context of the affirmative has not done anything, but the negative has not responded with a competitive strategy for how to grapple with that encounter that does not solely exist at the level of pure abstraction, and orientation at the end of the world, giving no additional grammar to A, what that means, B, what it resolves in, 3, creating a floating uniqueness argument for somehow why the link arguments are contextual to the affirmative with no work being done, which means that one affirmative is justified in making a claim for you can vote for closing the loop as a good method for solving the ways in which surveillance regimes both antipose double consciousness that the 1C does not challenge, but rather recuperates and produces worse aggressivities towards black women that only leads to more mimetic filling in more forms of trope making, which is a question of net worth violence is towards the one they say they will have to win a argument for one, the distinction between competition between optimism and pessimism, which they will not, but also be at risk of why the affirmative does not do anything uniquely good in this debate space. Too much work on the bottom portion of the critique to delve into why this debate space and what we are doing here has some value. If you think that closing the loop is good, even stands the poem, which is conceded from the 1A or is not a justification for why the method of the 1AC is bad, but rather is an embracement of that refusal not to the critique proper one is going to be internal link arguments. I'm going to film this through the conceded comes to an analysis that it's not a question of locating or recuperating one's subjectivity, but rather not reaching for objectivity and embracing of pathology is not the one that tries to locate within subjectivity a way to redescribe that pathological orientation, but rather is just is. To get to the just is a orientation to regimes that try to infiltrate and confront the of your blacks, which means that what is it that black women already do in the world? We have provided a directional claim, because if it's a question of leading towards the end of the world or not leading to recuperation, what does it mean for the good stuff that does exist and what black women have produced that has not been signed as being valuable? Our argument, which would be that either A, it's left behind, or B, it's taken into the new world, but severed its attachment from black women through the obliteration of black women flesh. Answer: black women flesh is transphobic. Answering it here, no, you're just not responding to Terrifics analysis. We're talking about the ways in which the breach of modernity through the womb locks What does the body convey, confront, and mourn do? It's the ways in which that location presents Black women as a rival for gratuitous freedom that does not get effectuate or change of the alternative, but also to the recuperation, like I've already responded to that, but also to contingency framing outweighs the risk of the link argument, because we at the end of the day still have to do something. There are still going to be psychodrags for how we hold each other accountable. What does the alternative say or do to create a referendum for how we then do engage, just to continue to orient ourselves to some objective value? Where is it? Where does it go? How do we associate the words of the affirmative sense of the permutation at best create a referendum for how we're able to navigate that does not leave behind a labor of Black women that produces the contours for that survival? Yeah. Whoa. Yay, debate.
Virtual handshake, everybody. Love it.
Yes. And so with that, thank you everyone for watching this debate. I'm sweating. This is what happens when you debate people who are still in the game. And then Eric, who comes back into the game and does some cool stuff. You kind of have to get back in there and sweat a lot. But look forward to more debate things. It's a takeover. We're coming. Asia, I'm waiting for an application for the boutique consultants. I'm just
Hey, I was actually going to talk to you about that. No cap. I didn't know what I needed to do or if I was even a subject of interest, but I'm down.
We're going to do interview stuff this week / next week. So like,
all right, bet.
slide into your DMs. Because I cannot not hire Black folks to do a lot of the coaching, to talk about arguments that folks love to talk about in this space, but not pay Black people to do. That's period. So with that being said, thank you so much. A lot of great things coming. Affordable private coaching. I mean, like, I would argue that one of the more accessible options, and coming from a lot of the greatest minds, but a lot of the underrated minds, folks who I did not know until I opened up an interview selection for folks I've done with, and I don't know. I've met a lot of cool people through this that I think that the hubris of debate does not allow us to do. So I'm super excited for bringing community back into debate and seeing what we can do to kind of move the conversations, move the discourse, move the competition. So if those things are interesting to you and you want to share the news of affordable coaching / different programs that are coming, it's not just coaching, and of course, yes, merchandise, blood, sweat, tears, scams have all been part of the merchandise journey. It's coming. Get excited. Support Black-owned business. But more importantly, we love debate. Support the pedagogical experience of debate too.